Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I have a purring friend here. Let's see, who I hope will not... who you can't really see, but who I hope will not eat my microphone as usual. She's been very snuggly today. Good morning, May. Good morning, Catherine. Tail. Working on finishing breakfast and having my first cup of tea. That sounds lovely. I am probably having one of my last cups of tea for the day. Oh, the purring word. Yeah, can you hear her? If I lean forward with my microphone. You may just be able to hear her. She purrs very quietly, but it's very genuine purring. It's just, she's a bit quiet. Oh, is the music so much louder than me? That is strange. It should be... Maybe it's because I'm a bit soft-spoken today, but I can turn the volume of the music down so that it's less of a problem. It's probably just because I'm a bit tired. I have been writing and editing and filming today, so that maybe that I'm a little bit hoarse, a little bit tired. It has been a good work day. So for you who are just starting your day, this is a bit strange in the time zone, but or in the multiple timelines, but I have just finished my work day and it's been a good one, and now I am winding down with talking to all of you. Lynn says those 15-minute warning was just enough to grab tea, cake and sewing. That sounds marvelous. Yeah, that's a bit better. That's good. At least I can adjust that as we talk, although I try to fix it as in advance, but the 15-minute warning was great. That is good. I'm wondering, because some people, they like send the warning as they are starting, but I feel like for us having a little bit of an advance warning is nice when we don't do it as often as we do. Milia says, for me your voice is louder enough than the music. That is good. Even before you spoke, the music was louder than the other ones? Yeah, I will turn it down for the other musics too. We don't want it to be too loud. Sometimes I wonder if there are other things at play when adjusting the music. The music is not the main feature after all. It's just supposed to be there in the background and being cozy. So how's everyone doing? What are you working on? I see Lynn, you grabbed a project and cake. Lucky. I didn't bring any snacks because I didn't think the microphone would like it, but I do have my cup of tea that I'm always nervous when it's hot that I will spill on the kitties because they have quite thin skin, but this right, I might be able to actually describe myself as a streamer. I mean our vibe is very different though, I feel that. But I think that the streamer environment is opening up more. I see more like artists streaming that they're working more, what shall I say, what do we call it? Parallel play. You know, I work, you work, and we all work together so that it's a nice cozy hangout, not always loud and... But I have been watching a few streams this year and they do seem to have a very good environment, like that they support each other and talk about each other in a positive way, and at least the ones I've been finding. Maybe I'm in a very protected part of the place, but yeah. An ASMR type snack is very lovely in your opinion, especially if we're all having food and drink together? Maybe, but I feel like I don't have enough control over how my microphone sounds to you that I don't want to risk it and loud mouth noises. Now-san says hello from Japan. It's midnight and raining. That does sound lovely. The sun is still very much up here and it's been a warm week. Madam is being very snuggly. I thought I was gonna knit, but... Are you falling asleep standing? Sometimes I wonder if you are a horse to fall asleep while standing like so. I should make a herb order for my balcony, I guess. Spent a few hours running groceries, too exhausted to do much. Then rest sounds like what you should do, in my opinion. A little spot of rest is allowed before running around to do more. I do try to have this attitude that, like, work is neutral, tasks are neutral. If I can manage to have a neutral attitude to laundry and dishes and cleaning and what have you, I will generally have an easier time of it. But when you're exhausted, you're exhausted. That's just how it is. And things will have to wait. You could experiment off camera? Yeah, I suppose. Everyone deserves a lovely snack. They do. And it's not that I don't have snacks, I just don't always bring them for the live stream. Sometimes I have some after or before. Don't worry about that. I do keep myself fed and hydrated and all of the good things so that I'm able to work and hang out with you and everything. The delivery is in 2 days, so I need to order it if I want to have any. Fair. Yeah, I ordered some upgrades for the workroom, like the technical side of things, the editing side of things, all the computer and technical stuff that you don't see that much. And they lost my order. It shipped last Tuesday, I think, and then it got lost. And it's still lost. And I'm a little bit sad because I had been putting off those upgrades for so long because I was like, no, I shouldn't spend the money, but it would be really useful. Fine, I'll take some of those YouTube earnings and invest in some of those work upgrades that hopefully will make it easier to edit videos for you guys. And then they lost it and I'm still waiting for it. And the ironic, like, cherry on top is that I ordered something else for a spouse on Thursday and that arrived on Friday. So something I ordered later took shorter time than this one that got stuck. But oh well, it'll come when it comes. Goodbye. You're having the rest of your birthday cake and modern Finnish meat? That sounds excellent. That sounds really nice. Happy belated birthday or birthday if it is today, and a nice rest. We once had homebrewed mead that a friend of ours made at a Viking market, and then some of the people had been out with the longboats and gone fishing. And we discovered that midnight, very, very fresh barbecued mackerel with excellent homemade mead was a very nice combination. And most of the reenactors at the market put it in the sea or like in salt water to keep it cold and saved it for the next day, and we were the only ones to have it straight away, and it was delicious. It was very nice. It was last week already? Well, still, happy belated birthday. 15 minutes are also helpful for not having to choose between finishing a video you're already watching or missing the start of the live. Even if nothing of note happens, it's good for anxiety. Yeah, I suppose. I don't mind giving you a little bit of a heads up. I do spend a few minutes setting things up anyway. That is true. Although, like, when I put the lives in the Discord, I'm also worried about bothering you too much with reminders, but I think that having a little bit of a heads up before we go live is a nice compromise. Like, that works. I don't think that is too obnoxious in a way, or like too disruptive, because I don't want to be obnoxious when we know that the live is happening, but a little reminder, I don't mind doing that. So I shall continue giving you a little bit of a heads up before we actually go live. That seems to be useful. So what are you all working on? What are you... Maybe you're working on resting or just chilling out and having a mental breather in between work and life and stress and all of the things that needs doing. And Haley says, a lovely way to start my morning. So good to see everyone. Struggling with an arthritis flare today, so I'm trying to be gentle with my body. Well, you are welcome here to have a very chill morning with us, Haley. And yeah, it's bodies are no fun. So I hope you are gentle with yourself and don't push yourself too hard. It's never a good time when our bodies decide to, I don't know, gang up against us. After breakfast I will do some mending or seam finishing or maybe some doll stuffing. That sounds like an excellent round of choices, to be honest. I am enjoying winding down a bit. I was a bit exhausted last week after the Black Shawl video, and I didn't manage to get much done in terms of work. So I'm very happy to have gotten back to getting some work done during the workday, because it gets very, very frustrating. I'm sure a lot of you know what I mean, when you're staring at your screen and you know that you're supposed to be working and somehow your brain just does not want to cooperate. It just sort of wanders off elsewhere or just completely shuts up, which is very rude. Not at all nice and not at all what I want, but today at least progress was made. Birthday buddies, I love that. That is so sweet. Leah says, I just came home from work, looked forward to the stream, and now I'm sitting at my spinning wheel to ply many singles. That sounds like excellent cozy work to do while listening in on a stream or podcast or book or any other such thing. I hear it's very, very meditative to spin, so that makes sense that it will be a nice task. Lynn is also recovering from a flare pushed too hard this weekend, but I'm slowly working on my giant sashiko project. Yeah, why do we keep doing that, huh? Pushing ourselves too hard and then getting the very real repercussions of it and going like, should I know better? Yeah. Will I do it again? Yeah. But some books that I've been reading put it really nicely when they wrote about how it's sometimes you just have to say that this thing that I want to do is going to be worth the pain and the flare, because you can't just ignore everything that you want to do in order to try to accommodate the disease all the time, because the disease is a part of your life, not all of your life, and that is, at least, I suppose not for everybody if they have very, very severe conditions, but for a lot of people I feel like that is sometimes a nice reminder that we aren't entirely our conditions, and sometimes the flare-up is worth it if it's a really nice thing that we've been looking forward to. But it can be a difficult balance, it really can. Many happy belated birthdays. It's nice to see so many well wishes. A city inspector may show up suddenly anytime in the next several hours, so I may vanish for a while. Oh, that is always... I never like when I'm, in waiting mode all day. Like a delivery may come anywhere between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. and you're just sat there, not being able to go anywhere, not being able to do anything without thinking that you may have to disrupt it in the middle, not being able to go for a little walk if you need it. You're just stuck waiting for this person, and I do not like it that the windows are so large. I get it from a work perspective, like they never know how their driving route or whatever is going to look like, how long other visits are going to take, but man, it can be very freezing. You just sit there and you wait and you try to do stuff, and it's a little bit difficult. It was for a good cause, so worth it, but I have to be careful now. Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. That sometimes it's worth it, and then we have to be very nice to ourselves. But still, it's good that you are taking care of yourself today, at least. Monday morning meeting has been cancelled. Time to curl up under a blanket with some tea and finish seams. That sounds like good priorities to me. Amelia says, for me it's asthma, but can't avoid running errands or going anywhere for as long as it takes in the spring for all the street dust to settle. All the gravel used in winter against slipperiness. Yeah. I am familiar with this kind of issues. It's a difficult time of the year for people to have asthma and allergies because everything is suddenly in bloom all at once, and so many people I know are very much topping up on their medication and making sure their nose stays as open as possible, as open as can be hoped. I wonder if we are gonna get to the end of this pattern set so that I get to do what I had planned to do for the black shawl but didn't get the ability to do, which was maybe we get to have a poll on the live for what pattern I should do next. But then I have to knit. I have to speed up my knitting, I think, because I still have almost a whole pattern repeat left before we get to the end of this one. I thought I would do 5 repeats of the dragon scales because I do like odd numbers. Do you ever get that too? If you're doing patterns of something, I'll be like, yeah, but it has to be like 3, 5, 7, something odd before I start the next one. I just have this idea in my head that I feel like it's more balanced in a way, if that makes sense. But I like doing that if I can very clearly see the pattern repeats, which I think you can with these dragon scales. You can sort of see them growing like little dragon scales or little houses or whatever you want to call it. But so I had hoped to finish the last row of those. And then we shall see how far we managed to get. Everything is still good? Yes. There was tech chaos. Regardless, I am back to commend my city in that if I wish anytime after half past this hour, I may call to see what my slot place is in the itinerary they make every morning. That is very nice that they try to give you an updated status on where they are. I remember where I lived, they would have this system where they would call you or like send you a text message when you were next in line or second next in line, like so that you know that, okay, now there is half an hour, maybe an hour until they're here, which was really, really useful for that waiting mode and anxiety, which is something that I really, really appreciate when they do that. You also prefer odd syllables in poetry? See, they're everywhere. I like when things are in odd numbers. Then again, maybe I am just odd, which I'm also fine with. but not before the aforementioned time. Yeah, sometimes it's like that. Meanwhile, I'm about to brew another cup of tea. I do love the knowing and feel the same. Yeah, it is very nice to have some sort of at least half certainty as to when they show up. But I also understand the worker side of things, where it can be difficult to predict, and then people get disappointed if you don't show up within the time they said. So I understand both sides, but I do like it. I really appreciate it when they have a system that gives you a little heads up when you are like next in line or something like that. Winry says, I'm still pretty new to sewing, and I'm having a really weird problem with corners. When I turn something on the machine that I have now, the stitching is always really loose and comes undone. You do the thing where you pivot with the needle down, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I didn't have this problem with my previous machine. That is very, very interesting. I'm not really sure. Haley, thank you for $10. I will read your message. I just want to finish answering the question. It might be that your new machine, Winry, has a different place where the stitch locks. So you may want to try to experiment with different positions of the needle when you have the needle down, to see if that helps. Or you could also, do just a little bit of back and forth if your machine has a back and forth feature, and just see if that helps. It's difficult to see anything without knowing the machine for sure, but there are different things. But sometimes they lock the stitch at different heights of the needle, so that might be why it's a bit different for you. But yeah, hi Haley, thank you so much for the $10. And say, I'm feeling very grateful for this community and the Discord this morning. I hope you all show yourself some love today and do something that brings you joy. Thanks for all you do, Kristine. Thank you very much. That is so sweet of you. I'm so glad the Discord is helpful and nice and encouraging. That is that is so sweet of you. And I mean, you are a big part, like all of you are a big part of why the Discord is growing into such a nice space to be in. Like, you should also take credit for that. I just said I want to see if we can build a space, and you all showed up and made it an amazing place. So thank you very, very much. You really helped me continue doing what I do, and I hope we can continue doing this kind of thing and facilitating encouraging, welcoming, positive spaces online, because I feel there is a real need for that in different places of the internet. You didn't realize the message would be so huge, didn't mean to distract. No, that's fine. That's completely alright. It's just how it is, isn't it? But it's not a problem at all. Anyone can, like, we can scroll if we need to. But yeah, I feel like there is this real need for positive, encouraging spaces online, and I also know that you can't just have one encouraging space, because different people are gonna need different types of spaces, different focuses. So we have a bit of a crafting, sewing, fiber arts focus. Other people may have a different focus. Maybe it's a positive writing group, maybe it's a positive video editing group, maybe it's a positive parenting group, what do I know? So and maybe there are different crafting groups with different vibes that suit different people, different energies, honestly. So I hope we can make one space where people can feel welcome, and the people who gravitate towards that will hopefully find it if we talk about it and sort of encourage it, because we know that any space is not going to fit, it's not going to work for everyone. So we do need to make many of these spaces, and if I can make one of them, then I'm happy to do that. And I'm really grateful that you are here, because again, you watching this and engaging and chatting and commenting makes it all possible in the first place. It's really true, and I really mean that. I wouldn't be able to do any of this if you weren't here engaging and commenting and having a good time and enjoying the work that I put out and the work that I try to do. So this is just as much your benefit as anyone else. So thank you. Let's see. Winry says, it can go back and forth, but it likes to jam if I'm not super careful about it when I go back for it. And even then, it sometimes grabs extra thread from the bobbin and makes munching sounds. Ooh. Are you absolutely confident that the tensions above and below are correct? Yeah, Catherine pointed it out too, and Lynn, yeah. That was the same what I was thinking, that it might be that you're having some issues with tension, and that you may want to check out your manual for your new machine and see if the bobbin and what is the name for the top thread again? In Norwegian we just call it like overthread and underthread. So the bobbin thread is the underthread and the spool of sewing thread on top is the overthread, which I can't remember what it's called in English, but yeah, I would definitely look in the manual and see if you could try to use some scrap fabric and adjust the tension and see how things look. So there might be some issues there, and you would want to use a fabric that is similar to what you're trying to sew, because sometimes you do need to adjust the tension depending on the density, the thickness, the physical aspects of the fabric. You're waiting for someone who knows what they're doing to come and look, but they're busy. I can empathize with that, and then you really want to do the thing, and yeah, it can be difficult. Because tension can sometimes be a little bit hard to spot, since it's inside the fabric, especially if it's a thick fabric. But I hope your friend who can tell hopefully can help you troubleshoot it has time to help you soon, so you can enjoy your shiny new sewing machine. That would be very nice for everyone involved. I'm afraid a machine that goes forward and backward is probably a modern one, so I will be much less helpful because I haven't used a modern one in years. Did I borrow one? I can't remember. I am a bit hopeless with the new ones. They are very technical and very fantastical, and my little old hand crank does the work most of the time. I don't really miss. Except for the backstitch. The backstitch is sometimes helpful, but I just turn my project around. But I really hope you figure out what is going on with that machine. That is so frustrating when you want to do a thing and the tools are not cooperating. It's no fun. Yeah, I don't. My machine doesn't have a backstitch, and if I try to force it to backstitch, it'll just break the thread, so I am familiar with turning my project back and forth and just using the forward motion, which works really well. But that is an older machine, so it doesn't have the bells and whistles that makes modern machines easier to deal with. But yeah, I really hope you figure it out. I should bring out the crazy patchwork project for live again, but I do feel like, at least with my brain, I have an easier time talking to you all and knitting than I do talking to you all and embroidering, because that was a mess. Stitches would sometimes be three times as wide as they were in the beginning of a seam than they were at the end. Yeah, I mean, that has a certain charm, but It isn't always what you're looking for, but maybe I can try again now that we are a lot more chill about this whole live thing and not as anxious as I was in the beginning, because it turns out it wasn't actually anything to be afraid of after all. Especially since we have the subscriber only commenting system on, which really reduces the risk that you get someone just dropping by just to amuse themselves with some trolling, which I have heard does happen, but we're still such a small and lovely community that it hasn't been a problem yet, at least. It's actually quite an old machine, but I have forgot to plug my computer in. That would be helpful, so that you actually stay online. That was why my screen was so dark. It is actually quite an old machine, but it is a modern one. With my eye issues, I can't use any with screens, so this was the best I could do. That sounds very reasonable. I worry about the screens and the computers and everything. I mean, with everything these days, having a little computer inside, it really makes it so much harder for us consumers to troubleshoot our own things. And I don't really think a lot of stuff needs to have a little computer inside. Like, there is no need for my fridge to have Wi-Fi access and a great big old computer and to tell me that my milk is going bad. I can keep track of that myself, and I would really rather didn't. I do not like the Internet of Things at all, and I avoid them as much as possible. Just a computer and a phone is sufficient, I think. I don't want, and we've already seen this with people figuring out how to hack cars, and then they share it on TikTok, and suddenly everyone can hack a certain type of car until they patch the issue, or people figuring out whether you're home or not based on your ring light and all of these different things. And I'm just like, no thank you. I can work with old-fashioned stuff without a computer with Wi-Fi access inside it. I don't really want to have all of these things telling me what to do, and certainly not voice-activated things. Those things terrify me. Plus, I don't really talk if there is no reason to, like unless I'm filming or talking to someone or talking to you. I just sit in silence, which is my preference. So to have something where I need to talk to it would just be annoying. If I can just press a button on a remote or type something in a message. I don't like voice-activated things at all. Oops, got a phone call? That's alright. I mean, they're just chilling out. It's not a panel discussion or... I mean, that could be fun too. That could absolutely be fun to invite some of my friends to hang out with us too, but it is just chill, cozy, hang out, parallel play as we work on projects or rest or have a snack and some tea or another drink of choice if you prefer. I just happen to have my cup of tea nearby. Knitting is easier, at least for me, to do partly by feel, so it's easier to do while talking. I agree. I get more distracted while I'm sewing and embroidering, so the stitches tend to change a bit in size, which they don't do when I can focus on what I'm doing. At least with embroidery. With backstitch it's easier. You sort of get into this feeling of this is just how we are sewing this thing, but I hate it so much that I have to bring my sewing machine to repair because I can't oil it myself. All praise to my great grandma's treadle machine. I can understand that. I like knowing how to maintain my own things. I just think it's fun. I mean, I will look up YouTube videos every spring of how to do maintenance on my bike. Not because I can't bring it to a local bike shop to do that for me, but I just think it's fun. I get this sense of, mastery and enjoyment out of learning how to take care of my own things. So same with the treadle machine, a hand crank machine and many other things, and I just think it's enjoyable to learn how to take care of things. I find that gives me a sense of joy, which is different for everyone. Ad break is almost over. Yeah, that sounds about time. Winry says, Wi-Fi kitchen appliances are such a terrible idea, especially if they can be turned on remotely. And apparently fridges were being used for botnet wars. Yeah, exactly. People hacking into my stuff. And we've seen this with digital door locks and things like that. That sometimes they protect them against hacking because they know that is an issue, but they don't necessarily design the lock so that it's also difficult to physically break into. Like, this is still a physical lock, and some locksmiths were like, yeah, but thieves aren't gonna hack your lock, they're just gonna take a drill and ruin the lock, and then the magnet gets broken, and then they just walk in. So that is especially a challenge with physical things like locks, is that they actually need to protect both against physical and hacker access, which is a very different ball game. It's a very different thing. But yeah, I don't see why my fridge needs to have Wi-Fi access or a stove or whatever. I just don't see it. Shout out to all the phone ads I get recently using spying on you at all times as a selling argument somehow. That is concerning. That is such a weird angle for an advertising company. That is such a weird take. That is so weird. Why would they frame it like that? My modern embroidery machine needs a new screen. The old treadle machine needs a belt. Haven't even used it yet. Oh no. Yeah, belts can be a hassle with treadle machines. But I think at least where I am, cobblers usually are able to help you because they work with so much leather, are usually able to help you find a belt that fits depending on what you need. But my friends, at least, I have a friend who is a master cobbler, has a little small amount of leather that they sell as well for people in need, because they know they can go to him for that, which I think is really cool. And he'll be able to cut you a piece if you need to, although the belt for the treadle is a round type of thing, isn't it? So you might need to have it special ordered, but they would be able to know where to get that and order it if you can't find it. I think if you have a good cobbler in your neighborhood, they'll probably be able to help. I have good experience with cobblers, but again, a friend of mine is one, so perhaps I'm biased, but I like them. They are good people taking care of your shoes and making sure things last for as long as possible. The only case where I've seen a voice-activated system actually being useful was as an accessibility aid. Yes, that is very much very, very useful, and I can totally understand that being a tool that people like to use for accessibility. So absolutely not dismissing it on that kind of basis. Just not right for me. But absolutely a beneficial tool for accessibility. You not Hume, of course? Yeah, don't worry. It's okay with all the typos and everything. Reminder to y'all to, if you want to opt in to receiving gifted memberships. Oh yeah, do you have to opt in to do that? I didn't. I wonder if I have done that. Oh no. Where do I find that? Maybe I should check that out if I'm on other people's channels. That is very kind of you, Haley, to mention that. I also heard that you as the viewer, not just me, but you as viewers can clip parts of lives if you find them especially rewarding or interesting or engaging or nice, and I can see what you've clipped, and then I can turn those things easily into shorts, and then we can lure more people into our cult of cozy and including crafting space. But I'm not entirely sure how that works. I haven't been on the YouTube side of things doing that, so I wouldn't be able to tell you where the buttons are. I've just heard that it's a thing. As Ariel mentioned that her viewers were doing that with her lives, and that sounded very nice. Just about to have rosemary and sesame crackers with Unintentional butter and honey. That sounds really nice. I might have to dig out some of my crackers in the pantry later. That sounds lovely. And a lot of electronic locks can be opened with a strong magnet. Yes, they can. And in the far north, because I've lived in the Arctic, so past the Arctic Circle, when it gets really cold, you know, wood shrinks in winter. That is part of the reason why houses creak so much. Like in Norway, houses are primarily wood. And this winter, when it was minus 30 centigrades at some point, our house was so noisy. Hello, madam. It creaked so much. And what happened was that with these new houses, with the electric locks that they assured everyone were fit for Norwegian conditions, didn't actually handle the shrinking of the door enough in winter. So the door shrank, the door frame shrank, and at a point they would reach at the stage where the distance between the door and the lock, the door frame and the lock, was so large that the magnet just stopped functioning as well, and the doors was just functionally open. I think they've fixed that now, but it's just, there are things that people forget to take into account when it comes to their digital fantastic tools and weather, nature, all sorts of things. Madam, my sweater is not something you need to sneak under. It's always listening. I visited my mom and we were talking about novelty compression socks while I helped her with laundry. My phone was in my car. Later I got ads for novelty compression socks. I know, right? Although I heard someone talk about, like, people who are more internet savvy than I am. Madam, you don't get snacks if you go dig for them. I know there are snacks in that drawer, but you're not supposed to steal them on your own. And they talked about how they don't actually need to be listening. It's just that your phones are in the same vicinity, like the same IP region, and then because if your parent or family member looked up compression socks, then they will know that you did by being close by, and then and then they will give you ads because you were in the same geographic region. They've found people in the military in the same way, like looking at fitness trackers and where people are running and figuring out where people are. It's so much information that we give out freely that they can use if they grab it. It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time. I've seen belts for treadle machines at sewing stores, at least in the one huge one in Tallinn, which many Finnish crafters love. Cool! I have not seen that in a sewing shop, but I might not have looked for it, or maybe I don't have big enough sewing stores, but that is really cool. If you have a local one that sells that, definitely support them in doing that. That is really, really cool. I have not heard about a modern shop having that. I love that. I got a new belt from a machine on Amazon, but did not yet have time to install it on my machine. Yeah, time is a thing. Rosemary crackers? Yes, same. That sounds lovely. I definitely want some of those. Rosemary is amazing. I planted some rosemary in our little flower bed, and I'm looking forward to putting it in soups and maybe making some crackers with them. When I'm not finding what I want on YouTube, I start saying keywords out loud. That keeps me what we want. That is horrifying. Useful, but horrifying. Oh, I wish that we had cobblers around here. Yeah, they are struggling because people will just buy new shoes rather than repairing them. So you do need to have a reasonably sized city for that to be a thing. But I have noticed that, I don't know why. Maybe it's because the rent is expensive and it's hard to make it, but a lot of the cobblers that I've found when I've lived in various places have been in very hidden locations, hard to find location, not the most obvious place. You sort of have to seek them out or know someone who knows where they are, because at no time have I seen a cobbler being like on the main street or with clear, like, here we are. It's always like hidden in a back alley behind something, on the top of something, and it's like, what? So I have a very hard time, but but when I do find them, I'm like, yes, I shall be utilizing your services to help keep my shoes nicely. Thank you. By Susie's are Fantastic. Cool. We like brand recognition. Absolutely recommend brands. To opt into gifted memberships, you'll see a join button under this live stream. On mobile, you'll have to close chat. Click that, then gift settings, then opt in. Sorry, correction. Click join, then 3 dots at the top, and then gift settings. May look different for each phone. Same thing on desktop. That is very good to know. I'm a bit curious now if I have that for other... Shall I check if I have that for anyone else? What about... Who shall I check out? What about Hazario? Click. Hello. Gift settings, found it. And allow gifts. Thank you. Do you have to do that for every channel? Do you know, Haley? That seemed like it was channel wide, so not actually YouTube wide, which kind of makes sense, I suppose, but that is very good to know. I was not aware that that was something you had to enable yourself. But I have done it now, so if I can find it, I have every belief that other people can too. Pardon? My grandmother said I could steal her sewing machine from the 70s, I believe, when I moved. So I'm excited to try it out compared to my very modern one. Cool. But I'm looking forward to troubleshooting it and making sure I can plug it into the modern power grid a lot less. Yeah. My grandmother had a really old modern machine, you know, with those really heavy-duty, enormous sockets that you look at them and go, ooh, fire hazard. You shall never be plugged in while I am not in the same room. If you opt in, it will opt you into all channels that offer gifted memberships, just so you know. It isn't exclusive to the channel you chose the setting on. That is good to know. It would be a bit tiresome if I had to do that on every channel I want to support. So that is very good to know. Perk to being a digital marketer, I know little tricks. Good! It's good to know little tricks so you can share them with others. I still have so much to learn about digital marketing. I still find it very scary to do the call to actions and the asks and everything. I know that I should do them more, but it's the balance between feeling like we're having a genuine interaction and that kind of thing. I find it a challenging balance, and you're also nice and supportive anyway, you know. It's a difficult thing, but with people who do it well, it's like with salespeople, just like with everything else, they can be, when they're really good, they're excellent. A really good salesperson that, you know, when you think about salespeople, a lot of people think about sleazy, pushy, always trying to do the upsell. But when I've experienced really good salespeople, it's just like everything else. It's communication first and foremost. They listen to you, they talk to you, they understand your needs, and then they actually give you something that aligns with those needs, and they help you find something that you maybe hadn't considered. I've had everything from one side to the other, and it's so lovely to experience when you're looking for something and you need help in a store. Having a really good salesperson is such an excellent asset to the store, who like really sees you and listens to you and sees you for a person and not just a commission. And I have experienced that, and it's excellent. It's absolutely fantastic. My mom's sewing machine was a Burnia from the 60s and it served so well. However, recently the motor finally gave in and there's no replacement. Oh, that's a shame. It's so difficult to find parts for old machines these days, isn't it? I suppose with the rise of... what are they called again? I was gonna say CNC machines, but they've been here all along. I was thinking about the printers, the 3D printers, yes. Maybe they could, but maybe it needs to be proper metal for it to work, which would be expensive to custom print parts for that, which is sad. But Yeah, sewing machine mechanics are surprisingly, they know so many different things because they service so many different machines. I'm always impressed by how intricate their knowledge is. Honestly, being genuine is the most important thing for content creators. That fosters a loyal community with better and more consistent engagement rather than a huge following with very few loyalists. I couldn't agree more. I would much rather have a loyal following than, you know, a really big but very disengaged one. It's one of the reasons that I want to do niche content that I enjoy. I couldn't do the very big, you know, humor channels anyways. I just wouldn't be able to do that. But even if I tried, it wouldn't be the same. Yes, well, sales and marketing are different. Yeah, they are. It was just the first example I could think of. But they should work together. The ethical goal of marketing is to get the right product to the right person at the right time. Yeah, exactly. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Like there are good and correct ways to do this, and I really like Alan Donegan. It's a British person who runs a podcast and a business called Rebel Entrepreneur, where they try to teach people this. They try to teach people to start businesses or just live better lives without being pushy like that, without the stereotype of the sleazy salesman, but where he talks openly about, you talk to someone and they tell you it's not for them, then you go, all right. You don't waste time trying to convince them. You go on to the next person and see if maybe your product is right for them. Because if they don't want to be there, then there's no reason to push. If you have an honest and good product that you really believe is going to help people, you're going to find people who want it. And I really enjoy that podcast because it does talk honestly about these things in that kind of way, in being genuine and being honest. And again, just like with a good series, trusting the viewer to be intelligent, I feel like good marketing as well is trusting the consumer to be intelligent and be a full human person, and respecting their boundaries and respecting their humanity, and not just treating them as, you know, a dollar bill, which doesn't really make anyone feel very, very good. Oh, sadly the machine was not fixable. It had cracked somewhere. Oh, that is sad. That is a shame. Poor machine. But it sounds like it had a very long, very good life of trusty service to your family, so that is at least something. I always feel bad when I see machines completely dusted down, or old treadle machines that have been painted to be interior pieces, and I'm like, no, my friend, you were supposed to be working. So sad that a metal worker cannot build a new one for you, or the sadness and loss of high-end specialized skill. Yeah, they probably could, but it would probably be prohibitively expensive to have it fixed. I mean, there's always someone who can fix it at some point, probably, if they rebuild the whole thing and all the machine parts, but it's going to be very, very expensive, so probably not worth it at all. But at least it had a long life, making clothes and doing good things. But obviously a lot of marketing and sales get pushy and manipulative, makes me sick. But I work with a niche scientific audience, so my experience ethics are different than, say, Amazon. Yeah. Niche marketing is very different from general marketing, I agree. And scientific marketing, especially if you have like very expensive tools and equipment, my experience has been that it's very, very different. I mean, when our department got money to buy a new analytic instrument, they didn't need to get advertised to. They know who they wanted to buy from, and then they talk to them, and then because these are very expensive instruments, they custom made them, and it was delivered 6 months later, because you don't have equipment like that just lying around. But yeah, it sounds like we are in very much agreement. The best marketers find people who are already interested in a product, service, or content, and then actually provide solutions to the consumer's issues. Exactly, yeah. It's you want to help people find what they need and want. You don't want to sell them something that they don't really need. In Norway, at least in northern Norway, we have this expression. My friend in the north would call it krushund, which sort of mean like, how do I even explain that? It's a little bit like a curly or like decorated dog. It's in reference to those tiny porcelain figurines that a lot of older people have on shelves and in cupboards and dotted around their house and just taking up space, which is the whole thing. It's a reference to the kind of gift that people just buy because they just need to buy a gift and have no idea what to buy someone. And we don't like that. That is not what we are all about. It's, yeah, marketing things that people actually want and need are very, very different than, you know, just trying to get people to buy your product or service regardless of who buys it or regardless if they need it. If you're interested in a great social media marketing read, Jab, 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 Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. I have heard of Gary Vaynerchuk. Not sure if that was the book they were referencing, but I have heard that name related to marketing before. I shall grab that and put it in a note. Thank you. I'm always looking for new books to check out. Treadle machines are so dreamy, but I can't treadle, so I'll dream about getting a hand-turned one instead. Yeah, that is sometimes the case. Although, you might actually be the one person who, like, I think half a year or so, maybe a year or so ago, my spouse came upon a used, you know, in the secondhand marketplace in Norway online, a treadle machine that had been retrofitted to work with electricity. So it was still really old, like the plug was still really old, and you could in theory take the engine off and make it turn back into a treadle machine, but it had an engine and a lamp so that you could see what you were doing on the treadle machine. So it still looked like a treadle machine with like a 60s style clunk of a grey engine sort of on the back of the machine. It was really cool, showing a really well-loved machine that had been used for many, many years and taken very well care of. It was such an interesting piece of taking history and bringing it with you because you already have a sewing machine, but you want to modernizing that kind of transitional equipment that you always see when you go from one thing to the next, because people don't want to throw away what they already have. So they make these transition tools to help people, you know, yeah, use what they already have, which it was so cool. It was really, really neat. I also have a friend who did that, make giant specialized custom made machines. Ooh, that is also really, really cool. I like that. It is, I know people who are CNC operators, so they program machines to, so like drill out metal pieces into very set dimensions. So that would be really useful for something like that. But of course they are expensive, but it's really cool that you have the industry of not just buy it and throw it away, but actually taking care of it and custom making things that people need. And there's still such a big need and want for that and market for that. People are going to want the things that they want and have them special made. And I think, pardon me, stomach, why are you being so upset? And I think there is such a room for that everywhere. And that is honestly one of the challenges whenever I research into synthetic materials, into pleather, into polyesters, into wools and superwash wool. It always comes back down to when something gets modernized and made in a factory, it changes the village economy and the, you know, we call them something like cottage crafts, cottage industries, that is the word. Thank you, brain. It falls away from being something you can do locally at a cottage scale level, where you would shear the sheep, scour the wool, spin it, knit it, crochet it, weave it, and then sell it. Whereas if you introduce a modern process into the mix, then you suddenly don't just have the factory, which obviously needs to be large scale enough to service a large community to make it worth building in the first place. So then you have a lot of transport to and from the factory, and then the local villagers no longer can do it themselves because it's now an industrialized process in a big industrial plant that removes that economical aspect from the village into a large factory, into a large scale system. And I see this over and over again whenever I do this research. That is a thing that just keeps coming up in the whole, human aspect of industrialization, not just the what is the thing that you're making and how is it made, what is it made of, but also how it impacts the people who live or used to live and make money from this industry now that it is in a factory hundreds of miles away and their skills are no longer wanted. Like, what do they do? How do they live? How do they change with that kind of thing? And I find it really fascinating, and also a lot of the times quite sad, the repercussions that these large factories will have on what used to be very local processes, especially if it's like with the superwash wool treatment. Guess what I've been researching, where the process is often a bit toxic, so it creates wastewater that is polluted with organohalogens, and a lot of countries in the West will have regulations against that. So then the factory moves to a place where the regulations are not as strict, leading to less environmental problems in the West, but more environmental problems in the countries where they move the factories to, where the wastewater regulations are not as strict, which is deeply, deeply unfair, because we will then import the processed material back to us for selling. We just didn't have to take the hit in terms of producing it and the pollution related to making it in the first place, which is a very modern. I feel like this is a part of modern industrialization that we don't really talk about or think about, but it pops up again and again when I do research. When I did research on the recycling as well, in that was a long time ago now, and when I look at PFAS industries, and when I look at the viscose industry, when we were doing that, it just pops up again and again that the unfairness of being the community that ends up in the factory. Yes, you get jobs, but you also struggle because a lot of the time there will be some issues with the effluent wastewater that they release, even if they're within government regulations or whatever. There is usually some sort of challenge, which is an aspect of industrialization that I don't think we consider as much, because we don't see it. It's invisible to us because it's far away in a different place. I don't have to see it. It's the age-old, everyone. I think in the old days it was like tanners and people who worked with hides and dead animals. Like, yeah, you want leather to make your belts and your hats and your bags and whatever, but no one wanted to be neighbors with one. No one wanted them to be right next to you, because they could be quite an interesting smell to get used to. And of course, tanners would also pollute a river downstream with all the tannins and different chemicals that they used. Even historically, before industrialization, it could be a problem to be downstream of a tannery, which is, it's always interesting to learn about these tidbits, and we still need the industries and the various things that they provide. But I feel like I am going off on a tangent that is that is not as cozy as illustrated, maybe. Let's see if we can move the stitch marker. Definitely. All right. I have not been paying attention to my poor stitch marker. There we are. There we go. Everything's still good with the stream? Yes, looks like things are good. Oh, I think my chat took a break and suddenly decided to send me all the messages I had been missing. I'm sorry. Or did we disconnect from the... I wonder if OBS disconnected from YouTube, because you've been chatting and I've been wondering where the chat went and I don't see it in OBS. I apologize. Why? Why? Oof, there we go. You were talking all this time and I lost all of it. No. Technical stuff. Feel free to reach out about marketing, resources and education. I've been accumulating free and paid stuff since I got my master's because I feel like it's hard to find trustworthy and not hype stuff. Thank you, that is very nice of you. I might take you up on that, because that is definitely a part of the business of everything that I have not been, that I still have a lot to learn about, and there is a large part of me that wants to get better at that, even if I still want to like produce more videos and do that, but definitely room for a lot more learning about marketing. Julia says that my machine was also retrofitted with electricity, but I didn't trust the old wiring and wanted to try treadling. That is cool. I wonder if you can do it while you still have the retrofitting with electricity still installed, just not plugging it in, or if that would break the poor machine. I love to turn a hand-turn machine. They're fun, so long as you don't have any hand strength. I mean, just like with a lot of bikes and stuff, it's just a little bit heavy to start, but as soon as it's actually going, it's very easy to do that. Toria, see with joy that there's a live stream today, so hello here from Zealand in Denmark, and hello Toria. Yeah, hello. I'm very late in saying hello to you because my chat decided to take a big break, not show me the new messages. I was wondering why you weren't talking and if I was saying things that were wildly upsetting or just out of turn, but it turns out you were talking all along. I just didn't see it, which is nice. Thank you, technology. I've just finished watching the Edwardian Farm series, and in it there was a big focus on how it affects society and communities. Yeah, it is. I really enjoy Ruth Goodman, and like when historians focus on that, because I feel like so many people talk about the big questions, you know, the economies, the geographies, and people moving into the cities as if they are just pieces and cogs in a wheel, but the human aspect of it is so fascinating, so much more fascinating to me than, you know, the big politics and the kings and the queens and the politics and drama of court. I'm much more interested in like everyday people, everyday humans, how they get by, what they enjoy doing, and just how it all works. And then we blame those countries for polluting, don't we just? And then we buy their products and we still blame them, and it's just a whole big like what? I think we can all agree we appreciate tangents. That's good. Because I have many of them, apparently. Isn't that how we talk to friends anyway? You know, you chat about things and then suddenly you're on a topic that you don't know how you got there. Or is that just me and my friends? Like, we will be chatting about one thing and then someone goes to grab a cup of tea or make tea or something and you come back and suddenly you're on a completely different topic and you can't really explain how you got there, you just did. Your chat also omits messages? That is interesting. It didn't omit the messages, there was just a really significant lag. Like suddenly it just stopped and I thought you were all not chatting and then I had to go and check things and it decided to put all the messages back again and I'm still not really sure why or how. It hasn't done that before, but definitely something to look out for. Hello Lee, coming in just now. Will read the comments to update myself. That is alright. We are no pressure about that. It's not like homework. Ruth Goodman is a global treasure. Isn't she just? She and the other gentleman whose name I can't recall did a great series on Goodalon Castle being built in France. Fascinating stuff. Yeah, they're so sweet. I really love it. You just see their enthusiasm for history and teaching people things just like glow out of them. It's so enjoyable. It's one of the reasons I really love the BBC Farm series, is that you see that they just love the craft, they love the history, they love showing you, you know, this cool thing that they learned about. And there's no drama, there's no competition, there's just a genuine joy in doing things and showing people how to do things and enjoying learning, enjoying history that I really appreciate. Brief ad break, no idea how long it's been. I think a reasonable amount of time has passed. That makes sense, that makes sense. It's tangents all the way. The connection between the treadle and the wheel was screwed together, so treadling did not move the machine. Wow. I didn't... Huh. I wonder if that is common, if they did that to everyone so that you wouldn't accidentally... It might be that when it's connected to the engine, you could accidentally ruin the engine if you treadle by force, I suppose. I never actually checked the one with the engine. We just saw it as an ad online and was like more fascinated by it. I never actually checked it out, but that is interesting. Good to know that they might do that. Emilia says, I think I paid 100 euros for my Tikakoski, a Finnish treadle machine made after the war. Very much like Singer, you can use the same accessories. It was sold without the leather belt otherwise working. Yeah, my Husqvarna machine is the same kind of machine where I have been very lucky that Singer parts fit, which is super, super nice. And I'm so grateful that that is the case because I needed... There's this little rubber ring on my machine where you would connect the spool winder to the main, what shall I call, the main wheel, and you like turn it up so that they connect, and then you are supposed to disengage the feed dogs, but it was a bit... Mine has something, I haven't figured out why it stopped doing that, but it's sewing anyway, and then that's how you feed the bobbins. And mine had a very old, very cracked, very not cooperating leather circle, and luckily for me, the Singer parts that I ordered online fitted perfectly, and I was so relieved, because it would be very, very sad if I had to find a different way to do it, or thread my bobbins by hand. Let's see, I feel like I need to encourage people who get the chance to actually visit Goodalon while it's still under construction. Ooh. Yeah, I was wondering, like, have you been? That is so cool. I haven't been traveling a lot. It's been busy with all sorts of everything, but that is a good point. That would be so cool to see what they're doing there. It's so fantastic. You've been there a few years back? It's really impressive. That is so cool. I really love this big historic adventures. Of course, castles are not really what we do in Norway, but there have been some groups and projects that dwell in reconstructing the longboats, the big Viking longships. Like, I remember people reading the sagas and talking about the sizes that they were referring to Viking ships as, and they were like, nah, that's too big, they're just exaggerating, there's no way they could build ships that large, like, no way. And then they found some grave sites and they started measuring, and they were like, oh, it really is that big. And they have been making some of those both for exhibits and to test them out in the water. And they're so cool. They're enormous. It's absolutely massive pieces of architecture. They are really impressive and really, really cool. And for some of them, they've even had projects regarding the sails where a different set of weavers, not just the shipbuilders, but the weavers will make the sails as well to see how long they take. And those are really cool. People so underestimate how long it takes to make textiles, not just for clothing, but for boats and tapestries and blankets and shawls and bedding and linens, and so underestimated because it takes so long to make those things. Haley's jealous that Lynn went to the Guedelon castle. I can understand that. I can absolutely understand that. It's been a dream of mine ever since I saw an article about it at a kids' archaeology magazine when I was small. Oh, those dreams are the best though. Really, really cool when you get to see those things that your child self-dreamed about and you actually, you know, respond to that child and show them that dream. That is super, super amazing. I really want to see the Viking reconstruction sites, the houses too. Yeah, I think there aren't a lot of the houses that are reconstructed. Usually it's in relation to a museum, so they'll usually have exhibits on the inside, or longhouses, but they are really cool. I've been to a few of them and they're really, really nice. They're always a bit smoky and a bit dark because obviously, but they're still really impressive in terms of scale and size, because that is something that everyone underestimates. Historically, I think. They think the houses were so small, but when you have, in Norway, we don't call them castles. Vikings didn't call them castles, and not for long after either. They called them like king farms, kongsgård, which I think is very telling in that the word for the sort of biggest, coolest house on the block was still a farm. It was just a really big and fancy farm, you know. They had a lot of workers, a lot of servants, a lot of everything, and they had good textiles, but they still did the work. The women still wove, they were still farming, there was still animal husbandry, like no hiding in the word. They were still, even if they had a big production of stuff, they were still a farm. Which I think is a very nice nod to how important it was to take care of your land and everything, making textiles and staying warm and firewood. But the boats are also really cool. Sometimes you'll see in the news that they have been like having collections of people to come and help to drag them out to sea, because it's a whole work, it's a whole job. If they have, recently I saw they did a really big one in the west coast, where they were taking it from a museum by the sea, opening up all the doors and pulling it out into the water, and they had to be super, super careful because the head of the dragon, you know, on top of the carving only had this quite small window where it fit, and it was like solid around it. It was super impressive how they managed to navigate that to get it out into the water. It's just, there are a lot of those projects happening around, and I think they're so fun. Don't think I would know where to find it if I looked for it, so I don't think I shall look for a link to that, but they are really, really cool. Which is a part of what the reenactment groups here enjoy doing. It's not just doing the Viking markets and the outreach with the public, but also doing projects like these, like getting funded by the state to try to reconstruct things and see how they work, because that is such a big part of experimental archaeology. You can theorize all you want about how something works, but until you actually have a go, it's so difficult to really feel and see and touch and see the different aspects. And I also get reminded so many times of how important master craftspeople are to archaeologists. Because I remember so many times when you read that something has been classified as a ritual tools, or it's unknown, or it's just a stick. And the best example that I always remember is there was someone found this really smooth sort of butter knife shaped piece of bone that was really, really smooth, really, really shiny. And they didn't know what it was. They had no idea. And then they showed it to a leather worker and they were like, yeah, it's a leather burnisher. We still use those today. And they were like, what do you mean you still use them? They're thousands of years old. And they were like, yeah, you get them in plastic and you get them in wood, but bone is just better. Bone is just the best, so we still use them. And I think that is so cool, and I think more and more historians and archaeologists lean more on public knowledge, you know, citizen science, and take feedback from the public, because it's completely impossible to be a historian and be an expert, be an archaeologist, and like know intricate details of all of these different crafts and skills. I mean, you would have to know things like weaving and leather work and making boats and making houses and wood carving and animal husbandry and blacksmithing and metalworking of other kinds. And it's just impossible for any one person to be an expert in all of those things. There just aren't enough lifetimes. So for them to be able to take something to a blacksmith or to a leather worker or a sewist or a weaver or a spinner and be like, do you know what this is? And they'd be like, yeah, it's this thing, it's this thing, it's this thing. It's just, it helps everyone, and it's super cool how many crafts haven't really changed all that much in all of those thousands of years. Which is just, yeah, it's just, I will not stop loving that. I think that's really cool. That's incredible. I don't know if I'll ever get to visit as I live in the US, so European travel is wicked expensive, but I hope, yeah, it absolutely is. Flying across the ocean is no joke. But fingers crossed for you to see some castle at one point if you want to. I'm not sure we will reach this goal of having a poll to see what I'm going to do next, because I'm still not done. Still working on the last of the dragon skills, but I suppose it is what it is. I have been thinking I would do one of the bigger patterns, though I think we're getting enough space for that, and doing either the flowers or the big pattern, the big diamonds is what I called it. Either one of those. And I suppose we could do a poll about that, even if I'm not finished. You will get to be involved in the shawl in some small way, even if this is not becoming a video. Where is my polls? Poll. Let's see. Start a poll. B question and flowers, large, wait, come on, we can spell sometimes, diamonds. Oh, I can't set a time, it just starts? No. No, I wasn't supposed to. I suppose we could do geometric. Geometric. There's no way to remove the option again once I started, so I suppose you will be there. Start. Ooh. Don't crash. Don't crash. Oh, end poll. It doesn't... I couldn't just set a time for it? I am always amazed by all these technical finanglings. I said we could do a Q&A too, but I mean, we're already doing Q&As anyway, so it's not really... Don't feel like there's a big need to specifically start a Q&A with the YouTube tools, because we are just chatting anyway, at least while we are still small and cozy and not overly encumbered with too many people talking all at once and everyone wondering what is actually going on. Vines for the shawl? Oh, that would be amazing, Twayan. I just haven't figured out. I really like patterns that go into each other and create this symmetry, and the problems that I always have with vines is that you end up with these very separate lines of vines that don't really merge with each other as well. I actually did a draft of an edging lace to go around the shawl, but I never made it because the shawl was already more than big enough and I was on a deadline. But maybe I'll try again and see if it gets nice. And that one I did have a rose leaf pattern intertwined into the edge lace because I felt like vines would be very, very beautiful there. But I haven't found, if you know any, let me know, but I haven't found any patterns for vines where they go sort of all into each other and get all symmetric and don't just become these individual stripes of beautiful vines, if that makes sense, because I would love more leaves and more vines and more patterns like that because I think they are gorgeous. I absolutely do. But I think if they are going to be long stripes of things that don't mix, they are more fitting if you do the whole shawl with them and don't necessarily when you change from one pattern to the other all the time. Sorry for the vines, I didn't know. No, not at all. I love ideas like that. I love vines. I think they're beautiful. There's no need to apologize at all. Absolutely not. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You are good. You are very much good. Let's see. Why can't I see? Ooh. Oh, here's my first ad. Interesting. So that is a good 1.5 hours into the live stream, which yet again just goes to show just how individual the ads are, how linked they are to where you are in the world and how many ads are getting bought in that region and how much they want to serve you ads and spend money on you. It's very, very much very different between different regions and different countries, and how much money they think you have and what sort of ads they think you will enjoy, and all sorts of fascinating and detailed factors. Any pattern suggestions for mohair really halo-y yarns? I mean, that depends on what you want to make, doesn't it? I do like to make the choice before. Like, I would really suggest doing some swatches when you do mohair, just because it's very difficult to unravel them again. But other than that, it's difficult to provide patterns if I don't know what sort of thing you want to make. Is it okay to put some links for Viking museums in Denmark in the chat? Yeah, I think you can go for that. Ribe is fun. Ribe is very cute. They have a very nice market and You remember the very small cows? They actually tried to get small animals which were more accurate to the history rather than just here's a cow and it's a huge one. But historically, I mean, we hadn't bred them to be so large at that time, so they were still fairly small and cute, which I think is really nice that they made that effort. I think my next project will be a shawl, but I'm not sure if it will be in flax, linen mix or wool. Both? Both is good. I mean, if you are in the northern hemisphere like I am, then you could always start with, it's probably going to get warm soon, so maybe a linen one so that your lap don't get really warm from the wool. I have a wool now, so I guess I can't say anything, but it depends. And then again, if you start a wool shawl now, it'll be done in time for autumn, where you need a nice cozy one. I don't have a shawl, that's one of the reasons why I want one that I can just drape over myself if this whole sweater business is a little bit too much. Fuzzy yarn is not great for pattern, maybe some lace pattern, at least you can see the holes. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. But yeah, my main experience with mohair and that kind of stuff is that it's very difficult to unravel, so you really need to know what you're making beforehand and not always such make it up as you go like I do. I made some lovely fingerless gloves with my hair, but I have plenty left over. I mean, when I make mittens and I have stuff left over, I usually like to make, you know, a hat or a, like, something to keep my ears warm, just because then I can use them as a set together and I feel all nice that I made everything by hand. But it depends on what you need, and some people can't bind by hats, so it depends on what you prefer. Hey everybody, first time joining from Rosalie, well, welcome. We are very relaxed over here. We go on wild tangents and craft things. Are you making anything along with us? Knitting along from the Netherlands, making a plotulpie cardigan. That sounds really nice. Let's see. And Flowers won the poll by 44%. That shall be the next pattern, although maybe you won't see it because I think it will probably be done by then, but that shall be the next one. And you will be able to hold me to that when you see me next and you see whether or not flowers are indeed next in line. Hope those things can show a little bit about Viking Age in the Nordics. Yeah, that's always a challenge whenever I try to do authentic Viking Age representations and videos with what we know, is that not a lot has been translated to English, so a lot of the sources end up being in Norwegian, but it is what it is, you know. Some of it has been translated, which is really nice when you're sharing it with people, but a lot of the softer crafts aren't. Like, you get the big picture things, but a lot of the time you don't get the small everyday details, so it's really nice that you get more and more museums working on English websites as well, and it's very nice to see the outreach, because at least in Norway that's not something they've been historically very good at, but they are getting better, definitely. Mila says the automatic captions are hilarious. More hair, my hair. Did the links get filtered? I hope they didn't. I thought they didn't filter links from subscribers. If they did, that was not intentional, and I don't know where they went. But oh no, I don't know why. Would it be in the settings? But if they didn't show up, that was not my intention. I probably messed something up in the settings somewhere that I can't find now. But Toria, if you put them in the general chat or the historical, like, academic research chat, or, well, general chat is probably good, in the Discord, then they can teach people things, because I cannot, in the speed of things, figure out why links would be blocked. I don't see a button somewhere that does that? Unless it's the general comment settings. So they might have been blocked, but I don't see them, which is frustrating. So, because if I saw them, I would be able to approve them. But yeah, if you put them in the general chat in the Discord, that will be possible. Yeah, I didn't know they would be blocked. I'm sorry when I said you could post them. So I still have many things to learn about this whole business. Another one from the Netherlands here, working on a pair of socks with my hand spun. That sounds lovely, Alex. Absolutely lovely. What a gift to make something not just from the yarn, but spinning the wool yourself and then making something. I hope to get there eventually, but that is so cool. I had plans to visit Guadeloupe last year, but I arrived to the region the day after it closed for the season. Oh no, that is so frustrating when that happens, when you look forward to something and it's not helpful. Yeah, YouTube tends to not like links. I suppose it does. But Toria, you have the Discord, don't you? Like you are in the Discord, so you can put them in the general chat so that everyone can see them. If not, then I shall find an invite link. Because I don't think I have the wherewithal to change that right at this very moment. And you do want it to collect other kinds of links. So where am I? Boop. Boop. But yeah, there are so many good Danish Viking museums. There are so many good Viking museums in Scandinavia, full stop. It's a lot of fun to look at them and general history ones and see the markets. I mean, I'm biased since this is my region, but there's a lot of fun stuff to be had at museums. I appreciate them more and more the older I get, and it's just, especially crafting tools, real life tools, broken things, not just the, you know, the royal stuff and the gold and the glam is all well and good, but I really like the everyday stuff, the worn out stuff, the stuff that tells a story. Just like we talked about, I think it was the History of Pockets book that Bernadette talked about on her video about pockets, where they talked about the wear on the side of the pocket, which side it was worn at told you something, or like which side the wear of the embroidery was on told you which side they were wearing the pocket on, and just all those kinds of small intimate details that really tells you something about someone's life. You know, combs with broken teeth and crafting tools with very specific wear marks. It's just such a view into their life in a very different ways to you know, the beautiful finished products, but the actual tools they use to make those products, I think, are really amazing. It's something I really appreciate when I look at it, go into museums. It's just seeing how things are worn, how things are used and exhausted, because they've been loved and used for so many years. These days, whenever I go into a museum, I start looking for the spindle whorls. I can understand that. When we lived in Trondheim, I would always go looking for the tablet weaving, the cards and the ribbons and the textiles. And I'll probably grow really fond of looking for spindle whorls as well, because they're so cool. Yeah, there's so many amazing... And so many amazing curators and enthusiastic people working in the museum who just wants to show you all the cool things. They aren't allowed, like they can't put allowed is the wrong thing. They don't have space to put out all the cool stuff at once, because the archives are just full and there's just so many things. But at least that is one thing that I love here in Norway. We have something called the Digital Museum, and I reference them in some of my videos because they're so cool. And I think it's, if not most of the museums in Norway, then at least all the, you know, governmental funded ones, which I think are most of them, I'm probably wrong, have access to this portal called Digital Museum, and they will put up pieces of their collection with pictures, sometimes with descriptions of how it was acquisitioned, when it's from, what it was used for, what it's made of. And I just love scrolling that site. It is so nice. And it just gets better and better every year. In the beginning, it was a bit sparse when they first launched it because, I mean, it takes a while for people to have time to digitize their catalog and put it out. But now, these days, it has grown so much. You can see, Oseberg is a pretty famous Viking gravesite that was found in, I think, around 1907, so like Victorian era type things. So as usual with the archaeologists at that time, they had no idea how to preserve the textiles nor the biggest interest in the textiles, even though they found some pristine, amazing tapestries in lots of colors that they realized were rare enough that they wanted to preserve them, but they had no knowledge of how to do that, so they did all deteriorate, and we just have the sketches of the artist on site to tell us something about what they looked like. But that collection, that is a very big and famous gravesite, and it has so many parts of it. I was looking for something for a friend of mine in the archive because they don't speak Norwegian, and I found the number, like the sorting code for the whole Oseberg site, and I just browsed through that entire thing and just had a blast just looking at all the different things that it had digitized so meticulously. And it just made me so happy that you can just browse and look and see and appreciate those things. Again, we were talking about accessibility of voice activated things. You know, not everyone can go to a museum either physically or because people, or for any other reason, but they might still have a very big interest in history. And for them to be able to look and see and enjoy some of the items in the museum without having to visit the museum, I think is really, really cool. And of course, I don't think you can tell if something is actually out in the exhibit or not, or if it's hidden in the archives. But it's also really cool to know where an item is, and if you have a really special research project, presumably you could email them and ask if you could have a look at an item or items if you find specific ones that are of interest, which that just invites more collaboration, doesn't it? Because more museums can look at what other museums have in their catalog and they can collaborate and exchange stuff and yeah, have a good time. Hi from the Netherlands, first time here, welcome, welcome. You are at least the third person from the Netherlands here to join us, so that is very exciting. It's a nice mix of people from all over the world having a good time making stuff. Oh, I'm getting sleepy. Having such a good time, I'm forgetting that we are supposed to be all lively and enthusiastic and just chilling out. But that is sometimes nice too, being allowed and encouraged to rest, I suppose. First time here, I'm Volan. Well, welcome, Volan. Volan. You are welcome here. We encourage people to bring a craft if they have one to enjoy it, or you can just have a cup of your choice of a beverage and enjoy the cozy crafting. We are definitely good at the cozy crafting aspect of things, with people making all sorts of wonderful things and supporting one another, which is my favorite. I find it's always funny that whenever people talk about learning a new craft, it's usually the same type of thing. It's, yeah, you could learn a new craft, but of course you will have to be honest with yourself whether or not you can actually count, because that is going to be required. My furry madam has settled down on the wool sweater that lives on the workroom table, because that is the place to be. At least there is not a big wool project on her person. When she tries to sleep on my lap, it's very difficult to keep it entirely out of her fur. In relation to Guadalon, I did make it to the Carcassonne fortress and Alcazar in Spain, and those were fantastic. I need to get started on my crafts today. I'm late. Oh no, whatever shall we do? Good thing we don't penalize anyone for being late or not doing it to a certain level or anything. We just chill out. So the links are in the comments now. Excellent. Oops. No, go back there where you belong. I had a really good look around the online Irish Museum's exhibition of Viking finds from Dublin and other Irish Viking settlement sites. It was fascinating and no people to negotiate. Exactly. It can be very nice. Yeah, I remember it was, I think it was Dublin that had, they have a really good, yeah, because I was looking for the Dublin Dragons, the original Dublin Dragons pattern and the original find. Yeah, they had a really good Viking exhibition. I remember browsing it and it was excellent. Very much recommend. A lot of fun. Ad break again but over? Yeah, that happens. Thank you for letting us know. Hello from Nebraska in the middle of the USA. I'm busy avoiding all of the many ends I need to weave into a crocheted cardigan. That's a vibe. That is very much a vibe. Sometimes I will be weaving in ends when I'm knitting while I'm knitting, because I don't want to do it all at the end. But yeah, most of the time I will just be avoiding it until I have to, because I feel like I'm done with the project. What do you mean I have to do all these finishing steps? I'm done with the knitting. So yes, quite adequate period between breaks, especially for my region. That is good. It seems like we will just leave the settings where they are for now, that it's mostly not too abrasive, which is what we care for. Hi and hello right back. You are welcome here. It's nice to see so many people from all over the world. It gives me hope and joy and all of the good things. If they become noticeably frequent, I will say something, otherwise they are quite acceptable to me. That is good. I also think that it's going to depend on when during the year we do them, because we know that marketers spend more money in front of December and the winter solstice and all of the things, that they're probably going to be more ads then, just because marketers will spend more money. So it would be interesting to see. I mean, the scientist to me is like, ooh, we should do a graph, see how many. That is far too much to keep track of, but it would be fun to see if it fluctuates throughout the year. I would be curious. So I have a feeling that it should, but I'm not sure if that feeling is correct. My giant shawl changes colors every 2 rows. I live in fear. But if they change color every 2 rows and you go back and forth, couldn't you conceive of, or, well, I'm thinking just 2 colors. If it's many colors, it wouldn't work. But if it was just between 2 colors, I would be tempted to just leave the one ball of yarn and then just sort of pull it up and then not have to weave it in. And then do the same, let the yarn wait while I do the other color and then just move it up the two rows and then continue. But if it's more than 1 color, that shall not, more than 2 colors, that will not work at all. I work Volunteer as a bronze caster in Germany in reconstructed Bronze Age village. Ooh. My teacher did research on Bronze Age hammers. She found some that were used by left-handed people. Isn't that special? Ooh, I love that. People, hate on left-handed people is so recent. We have Vikings as well, where you see that based on where the sword was placed in the burial site and like the shape of their skeleton, you can tell that they were left-handed. And we have comments on that in the sagas too, so we have written record of it too, and nobody cared. Left-handed people have always existed, so I love that you have examples of that in the Bronze Age period too, with the hammers. That's so cool, and it makes so much sense. That whole thing with forcing everyone to be right-handed is so strange, because why wouldn't you want people to perform at their best? And when you force someone to be right-handed when they aren't naturally right-handed, they struggle, they have less dexterity, they have less fine-tuning. It's just, yeah, I love when you find proof of those things that, you know, we have known they existed, but seeing proof of it is so cool. So that is really, really cool. Also, volunteering as a bronze caster in Germany in a reconstructed bronze village is also really cool. I love that. That makes sense. In my region, this upcoming weekend is a huge but not loud national gift-giving occasion. I see. Yeah. That's gonna vary with where we are. No, that there are different colors for the shawl? Yeah. I thought it might be as soon as I said it, and I was like, yeah, it would not work at all in this case, and indeed. Wonderful to know left-handed inclusiveness. I agree. We exist and have always existed, and we will keep existing to bother all the right-handed people and confound them with our left-handedness. Haha. That has always been a thing, though. Whenever I need to learn a technical skill, the right-handed instructors will be all confounded by my left-handedness and just not know what to do, which is funny, because we as left-handed people get so used to having to mirror everything they do, so it's pretty normal for us, but yeah, the instructors get a bit flabbergasted. Evidence that the human brain doesn't evolve quickly? Yeah, there's so much of our brain that is still linked to those tool using and crafting and so very social beings that we have evidence of in the past, and it's naive to think that we can just bypass all that with technology. I don't think that will work. We will still need human connection and crafting and rest and appreciating nature and all of those things that are good for healthy human beings in many different ways. Let me see. We're supposed to check the comments, so let's see if they are, if I can find them. It's gonna be they shall be in the YouTube place when I find them anyway. I can't see them yet this week, but I shall look for them when I need. As a lefty, trying to teach right-handed people how to crochet is always an adventure, isn't it just? Because they're so used to having things look exactly like they do, so they're used to things looking exactly like they do, and they just have to copy it. Whereas when they have to mirror, they get really confused, because that's not something they have to do on the regular. It's always challenging. I've had a comment asking if I should like alert people to my left-handedness more loudly so that right-handed people don't feel like a skill is harder than usual than it really is, and I'm like, You know what? No. I don't really want to advertise how I am different, but still 1 in 10 of people who are left-handed, because it's nice for you to experience something that is not made for you in the same way that you're used to, because it's nice for us to challenge ourselves and be exposed to content that wasn't made for us and see how it's different. Even if it's just such a tiny, tiny way as left-handedness of all things. As a child, I wanted to be left-handed, was told that left-handed people are very intelligent. Yeah, biases work both ways, don't they? I just couldn't help it. I mean, if I always used to talk about how if I broke my left arm, I would not be able to continue my studies because my right-handed writing is atrocious. It's very barely legible and super, super slow. And if I try to write fast, it becomes illegible. And if I'm supposed to keep up with the lecturer, it's just not possible. It's... Yeah, I can barely write with my right hand, but it's very slow and yeah, not very helpful. Question for the lefties out there. Do you only use left-handed scissors? I have a left-handed friend, but they use right-handed scissors because it was too hard to find high-quality left ones. There are usually neutral ones, and they are often easier to find than right-handed ones. So you have the angled ones, like the tailor shears. I almost feel like I could grab my shears over there, and I could show you what I mean, because I actually have an example of that right next to me. Don't tilt everything. I don't know if you will be able to actually see this on the camera, but the example is there nonetheless. And I'll be honest with you, when I went to school, to primary school, there was usually one left-handed scissor in a class of 30 and the rest were right-handed scissors. And the lefties, because I mean we are 1 in 10, so there would be like 3 to 4 left-handed people in a class of 30, would be like, oh my god, the left-handed shears, and you wouldn't get it and you would have to use the right-handed shears, and then your hands get all painful because the angle is all wrong for your hand and it's very uncomfortable. So I have the first pair of shears that I got. Let's see if I can show you. These are very good. These are very good shears, but you can tell... hello. Will you focus, madam? But they are completely even. So they are neither left-handed nor right-handed, they are just neutral. Which works really well when you don't have an alternative. And they were, I think they're usually what I go for because they work for everyone and they're easy to find. But I did, on a sale, get a pair of actual left-handed, oh, you can't really see, can you? Because it's black, so the shadows don't really show. But this one has angles. But it's angles for left-handed people. And it's amazing because it's when you're used to not being the one who is accommodated, even if it's such a small thing as left-handedness. It's not like a disability or a marginalized group. It's not like that, but it makes you feel included in a way that you hadn't before, and it's a big deal. When I saw these scissors, like, it's stupid to say it, but I almost teared up when I got them and I tried them in my hand for the first time, because for the first time in my life I had tailor shears that were made for me, that had me in mind, not just as an afterthought to the neutral shears, but actually made for me. And that is a big deal for people to be included in that way when they are marginalized. And again, this is not an important marginalization. It doesn't hurt me, except of course left-handed people are slightly more prone to accidents because equipment is made for right-handed people. So you have things like left-handed people having more accidents with chainsaws and things like that because the way you want to hold it is not how it's been built. So it's a little bit more wonky. It's a little bit weirder too, but usually you can learn your way around it. But yeah, it just feels nice, doesn't it, to be included in that way? And that just goes for everything, not just left-handedness, but all sorts of arenas. people seeing, and I suppose the best example that actually makes more sense is representation in media. People think it doesn't matter whether an actor is white or black or Asian or Native American or Maori or Sami or what have you, but for a young child, especially growing up, to be able to see themselves as a scientist, as an engineer, as an economist, as a successful person in society. I mean, gay people, lesbians, bisexual people, asexual people. Being able to see yourself in media is so important, and it's something that we, like as white people, usually take for granted and we don't see the big deal. But everyone in all the marginalized communities are shouting, it matters, it makes a difference, it's really important. So I really love to see more independent studios coming out with more and more works and movies and stuff. I mean, this is not a small studio, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head right now is the Turtles All the Way Down movie that is being released just now from the book written by John Green, which talks about and like illustrates having a main character that lives with OCD and what that feels like and looks like. And it's so important to have these kind of representation everywhere. And that is one instance where I think YouTube channels really shine, because we don't have the big budgets and the big costs of the big studios. I can just sit down and talk to you about how I experience my autism, how I experience some of my anxiety, how I experience being a woman, you know, all these different... Please don't look at my microphone cable like it's a snack. We can just talk about all these different things, and we can find other creators talking about very different perspectives of their lives, and we can just open up our ears and hear what they have to say, how they experience their life. And I think that is the big strength of YouTube, to be honest, is that you are able to see and experience and listen to so many different viewpoints without it having to be, you know, a big movie production type thing. And that I think is so amazing. But yeah, I think this is really important. But yeah, let's see all the stuff that I miss. Lily says, I'm an odd lefty. I can do a few things with my left hand, but I naturally use my right hand for a lot more things, including using scissors. I can't really use my left to cut. That is really interesting, and I guess it just comes with instincts and all of the things. And what you've learned and what you're getting used to doing. One of my kids is left-handed, and I really struggle to teach them crochet. In the end, I learned crochet with my left hand to be able to teach them. That is really good of you to accommodate them in that way, because it's more difficult to mirror things when you're a child. It's very much a learned skill from necessity. Well, I'm sorry I didn't see you leaving, Lee, but have a good one. See you next time, hopefully. Goodbye, onigiris. That was supposed to be exclamation points, not rice balls. That's the best typo I've seen in a while. At least it was a cute one. Julia says, I do most things with my right hand, but I always use scissors with my left, and I cannot cut with left-handed scissors, only with right-handed one. That is interesting, because I found proper right-handed scissors with my left hand very uncomfortable over time. I can use them for a short while, but in the long run it gets uncomfortable for me. I don't know why this is the case for me. No one ever tried to make me do things with my right hand or tell me it was wrong, and it was annoying when I had to use the lefty scissors in school. Interesting. But I mean, again, so long as people just let people do what they need to do, what they want to do, just let people do their thing, so long as they're not hurting anyone, including themselves, then you do you. Doesn't really impact other people, does it? So yeah, just do your thing. And not stupid at all, being served and included in any way is meaningful? Exactly, it is. Even in such a small way. Even in such a tiny, tiny way. They have red handles as opposed to the orange ones, so they're easy to recognize. Yeah, in school they definitely color-coded the left and the right scissors, and it was very nice. It was very easy to spot the one you needed. And it makes people feel part of the world, less alone. Yeah, exactly. It's so important to show them that other people like them exist. I remember there being I think, was it on Instagram or was it on TikTok? But it was some sort of social media thing where they talked about how young ones, I think it was lesbians in this example, didn't know what an old lesbian looked like because they didn't have any examples, they didn't have any role models, they didn't know anyone, they just had themselves. So they did this like shout out to get the older lesbians to chime in, anyone over 40, and they got all these lovely, genuine, heartfelt video messages, and I get touched just thinking about it, talking about how they're happy, how they found love, how they found themselves, and they are enjoying life, and they survived, it's possible, keep going, all of those encouraging things that you need many different people saying the same thing, because I have a very different community to someone else doing crafting, to someone else talking about woodworking, to someone else talking about video production, what have you. All these different communities will have different people flocking towards them, and they usually need to be told, similar things. You can do it, it is possible, keep going, it's worth doing, it's worth trying. And it was just such a lovely accumulation in the end, like collection of people telling them that, hey, we are here, we exist, we are happy, keep going, you can do it. It's beautiful that we see more of that with social media. Pardon? Catherine says, being seen, accepted, understood, and included is so fantastic. I can only imagine how challenging it is for left-handed folks and others who are usually marginalized, ignored, and overlooked. Yeah. And or expected to adjust to comply with the majority, because that's the thing, isn't it? If you learn to adjust because you have to, they don't see the need to accommodate to you anymore because you have become invisible, and your struggles somehow aren't an issue anymore because you're not making noise, you're not the squeaky wheel yelling about accommodation. We see this every year with wheelchair users and shoveling snow in Norway, because a lot of the time a lot of places get really rocky and like bouncy with a lot of snow and a lot of holes, and it's just impossible for wheelchair users to navigate the pedestrian paths in the streets because it's way too wobbly, and their wheelchairs are at the risk of falling over. So a lot of them end up isolated inside their homes all winter, which is devastating. That should not be a thing that happens to people, and yet it does. And if they aren't loud about it, people won't realize it's even an issue because they're just at home, so they're not visible. They're completely invisible unless they shout about it. It also makes a difference when the only people like you ever saw were horrible antagonists who have to be defeated, or worse. Yeah, exactly. If you're only ever seen in media as the evil one, like, what is that going to do to the confidence of young people growing up? Like, at worst, they get really depressed, and like, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where you tell them what they are, so they become what you tell them, and they don't understand why they have so many problems with this specific group. But it's like, yeah, but you told them to be this way, and now they are. Agreed. Or Lynn, or even small things like only ever seeing yourself as a motivational story rather than someone who can just exist in the world as themselves without needing to be a statement. Yes. Inspiration porn and in using disabled people as inspiration porn, no thank you. I am glad that we are getting more awareness about these things. I mean, I am far from perfect. I still have subconscious biases that I have to work with, that still exist within me from the society I was raised in. And I think that, being aware of it is a good first step, and then we have to work on it and hold each other accountable. And I think that, again, that is something that I want to foster in the Discord, in the community, that you should be able to tell someone, hey, I think you maybe phrased that in a hurtful way, like you might want to reconsider the way you phrase that, or the simile or expression that you used to say a specific thing because it's hurtful to this group or this group, and to be able to take and receive criticism. I really hope we will be able to do that without people being, you know, really upset and just leaving. I hope we can foster this kind of back and forth with each other where we help each other grow and be better humans. That I really hope we can manage to do that, because it can be hard. Learning to take criticism can be really difficult, but it's such a valuable skill to work on because it's so important. Nobody's perfect. Magnil says, my first needle binding socks were made left-handed, the other right-handed. Just made sense to me at the time. Ambidextrous people, my friend. That is just that's just flexing at this point. My spouse is also ambidextrous in many things, and it's really fascinating to me. I could never. Lynn says, wait, did you not bring your own scissors to school? I did not. That was not allowed. Sharp things in your pencil case? Absolutely not. Scissors were part of the school tools in the classroom. We had only pencils and erasers and pens and rulers. Rulers were allowed. The scissors, no. Sharp things in each student's pencil case, just unsupervised? Absolutely not. My grandmother is left-handed, but she was harshly corrected as a child. I learned that in my culture, the left hand was associated with the devil, so left-handed people needed to be corrected. Is that where it came from? Because we had a similar thing in Norway when my grandparents were growing up too, and very similar thing where you would get, you know, smacked on the hand with a ruler when you were left-handed and that you needed to be corrected. And it's just like, why though? You're learning to write, aren't you? So why is this a thing? Why do we care so much about how someone does a thing if they're not harming anyone and it ends up with the correct product in the end? Hello all, hello Eleanor. Too much to do today to chill and craft, but hope you have had a lovely time. Sounds like a really interesting conversation. I get to go on tangents and rants about inclusion and diversity and marginalized groups, and I'm having a fantastic time. At least it sounds like the chat is having a good time too, which is really good. I hope you are having a few minutes to yourself, even if it's a very busy day. Yes, Lily, I've had random strangers tell me you're so brave, keep going, you're so inspiring. Ugh. Well, I'm using a cane at the grocery store, like my existence as a young person using mobility aids makes me a poster child for just keep trying, persisting is key, look at you go. So gross. Yeah, that is really, really gross. Like, I'm just out here doing my thing. I'm getting groceries just like you are. Like, why? Why? It's, yeah, absolutely something we can work on as a society to just pay less attention to. Just see the person. I have replenished my collection of teas for daily use and am now about to rebraid my hair. That sounds lovely, especially you having a good slow morning. Diversity within representation is very important. As someone who is trans-masculine, it is wonderful to see so much trans-femme representation, but it's hard to find any resources for myself, and it doesn't help that I'm also ace, non-binary, and disabled. I'm not only invisible, but I'm often outright shunned or ignored. Yeah. I am familiar with this. I have a trans-masculine friend, and I've heard this. I have heard this before. It's a big issue with, you know, trans-masculine people vanishing when they transition because they pass so much easily than trans-feminine people, and then they don't get seen in the same way because they just become part of the background. So I absolutely hear you. I am sorry that you're struggling, and it can be really difficult. But yeah, our Discord is welcome, and the sensitive discussions region is open if you want to discuss some of those things. I don't have a trans experience myself. I just have friends who talk about it, so I can't talk about it from a personal experience, but it is difficult, and know that you are seen, and I think more people are focusing on this, and I see more trans-masc people, at least on places like TikTok. I still want to see them in like long-form content on YouTube and in more bigger representation, because yeah, it's a lot of talk about trans-femme, especially with certain people really hating on them because they are so much more visible. But it's definitely important to make space for the trans-masculine people in our community as well. and being ace is just like on top of that, you know, another thing we have to contend with. But know that you are welcome and accepted here. We don't do any gatekeeping in that regard. I hope to keep having an inclusive community where people feel welcome, no matter their gender or sexuality or the color of their skin. Just come and have a chat. Maybe you'll find someone you can talk to who makes you feel more seen and validated. Constructive criticism is wonderful. Thank you. I've been in safe communities where if you said something slightly wrong, you'd have a mob of angry people after you, and even if it was accidentally, yeah. I don't want to do that. I think that like everything, we can always make mistakes, and no one should grab pitchforks for honest mistakes. It's just not conducive to a nice, inclusive community. Then you just get communities that, you know, want to be inclusive but don't actually do the work, because the work is hard. It's always hard to listen to people talk about how you hurt them. No one wants to hear how they hurt someone else. Most people want to be nice to other people. So when someone comes to you and say, you know, this thing that you said was not okay, and you have to sit with that, that can be really painful, and a lot of people don't know what to do with that. I certainly didn't when I was in my early 20s. I had very little experience, and luckily for me, I had some good friends who actually called me out on some of my bullshit and taught me better. And I'm incredibly grateful to those people for caring enough about our friendship to bring those issues to the forefront, you know, to actually bring that up with me and not just get annoyed and, you know, and not want to hang out with me. So it was very good of them to actually have the heart and the capacity to do that emotional labor of talking to me about some of the ways I needed to learn and be less problematic, because we all start from somewhere, don't we? Like especially us white folk in the west side of the world, we grow up in a culture that very much teaches us a lot of stereotypes, and they just get internalized without us really asking, because they're such a big part of culture. And again, representation in media really shapes that, and some of that representation is really unfortunate. We talked about only being seen as antagonistic, so absolutely representation matters, and being able to call someone out without having a round of pitchforks is incredibly important to me. It's incredibly valuable. And I would never ban someone from the Discord for making a mistake. I don't even want to have, you know, anything like a 3 strikes you're out or anything like that, because so long as you're learning and improving, what's the problem? So long as you're honestly learning, then the exception, of course, being people being very harassing towards some of those minorities without any interest in learning or anything like that. I see a lot more transmascs as well, and non-binaries and asexual people. It's so nice to see so many people come to your aid. I love to see that. So yeah, I hope we can have chats and talk more. And if you want to chat more outside of lives and stuff, I mean, the Discord community is there for you. Like, talk about it. Of course, we cannot really help in urgent emergencies if people are having really bad mental health stuff, but talking about psychology and how you're feeling, if you're having a bit of a down day or just a little bit, feel like you need a little bit of validation, use the community. That is part of why I wanted to build it, you know. It's there so that we can support one another. Yeah, and the very little non-binary visibility there is also not very diverse. Yeah, I know. It is something that is absolutely that we need to talk about. That is also something that I know from my own experience in the autistic community. A lot of the people who talk about autism are white, and a lot of the privileges that we have being white in society don't resonate at all with... We have another friend who is black and autistic, and he talks about how he cannot unmask and do a lot of the things that a lot of the, autism influencers encourage people to do, because it's not safe for him. It's absolutely not safe for him to do that. And that is such a privilege that we absolutely cannot underestimate. When we talk about these things, like, don't take your own experience for granted, because someone else might have a very different experience, even if they are similar in other ways. Or if you do get representation, it opens the door for people to be more outwardly, blatantly critical. That is true. So then you're stuck in, I want representation because I'm invisible, but I also don't want to be the object of ridicule more than I already am. Yeah, if you're gonna be representing people, you gotta do it right. That's the thing, isn't it? You have to actually listen to the people who are experiencing the thing. And that was one of the things. There was this movie that had, what's the word again, when you have these struggles with walking because you were born and lacked oxygen? Cerebral palsy. And there was this movie where they had, where they were depicting someone with cerebral palsy, and actors with cerebral palsy applied for the roles and were rejected in favor of able-bodied actors because they didn't think someone with cerebral palsy, it's a word I'm struggling with, sorry, wouldn't be able to do the things that the character was doing. And they were like, well, if this character has cerebral palsy, and I do, then you've written the character wrong if I can't play the character that you wrote to have my condition now, could you? I thought we were all weirdos in here? Yes. All a bunch of weirdos all hanging out. All the outcasts who didn't belong anywhere else finally finding a space where we can be included and have fun. And we've talked about that too. Especially I remember Lynn talking about it too, that when everyone makes stuff for the majority because they are the biggest market, you just leave such an enormous amount of people out in the cold. Like, why? Why not make spaces for them too? The internet is big enough that you can make spaces for everyone. Why not? Why not give them somewhere nice to go? This is honestly one of the most comfortable communities I've ever been in. Thank you for making a place where we can exist as people rather than spotlit weirdos. I am so glad, and the community still feels so young. I can't believe it's already been over a month that we actually did the proper Discord thing and not just community in the comments, and I'm so genuinely blown away by how well you've all taken to it, how much you appreciate it. And I'm like, yeah, but I just started it. It's just this tiny thing. It's barely anything yet, and already it's becoming a thing. And I really hope that it stays that way. And that is kind of the culture that I want to encourage us all to enjoy. And the culture that I want us all to build. But Julia says battery is almost empty, so I have to leave, but thank you for the lovely time. Well, thank you for joining us. Go charge your whatever you're watching this live on, if you can. Being a weirdo is opt-in? Yes. That is very true. But we are welcome to everyone. I'm definitely weird, just not in the ways that they think. Yeah. That's alright. You can be weird with us, having tea and crafts on a weekend rather than partying and drinking. But I mean, when you enjoy that, you can absolutely do both. But that was one of the things we always had fun with in one of my Viking reenactment groups, was that we would have our Saturday crafting party with lots of tea and snuggles and crafts. Or on Sundays when other people were hungover and it was a running joke. But I mean, there's absolutely no judgment in either way. Like, you do both, you do you. That's amazing. But it was a fun little thing that we kept joking about, like the weirdos finally having a place to be. I realize you probably meant that as a compliment, however I do not identify as a weirdo. That's okay, you are still welcome. That is, the only requirement is that we are welcoming of other people and let people be whoever they want to be. That is... That is what is important to me. And it's very nice to see not just the diversity of, sexualities and disabilities, but also this variation, like the, I can't I word today, diversity in ages, because that is so important. Intergenerational conversations are something we are really missing in our culture. In the current sort of, everyone finds people their own age with their own interests, and they sort of hang out with just themselves. And I think it's really something that we're missing, that, a grandmother teaching a grandchild to do a craft or to bake a cake or to do a thing. And we are so rapidly losing that because everyone is finding their own cliques of like-minded people and just hanging out with those. But I think having a diversity of acquaintances is really valuable. So yeah, Catherine, you're absolutely welcome here, and I'm glad you feel welcome here, because you are welcome here, and I want everyone to feel welcome, so long as they are equally welcome of other people. That is the only requirement that I have, that you need to be equally accepting of other people, and speak in the chat channels as if people from all sorts of different cultures and communities could be present, because they might very well be. You never know. Poor representation is why I find American cop shows so horrific. I have nightmares about ending up in any sort of legal trouble. I can understand that. That is something absolutely to be anxious about. And it's sad when we don't get representation and you just see the same types of cast over and over and over again, when they could have had so many other opportunities to represent so many different people. My gaming clan is literally called Spare Parts because we're a bunch of misfit friends. Nice. Nice that you have all found each other. I like that. Agreed on age diversity. That was something I've always valued when volunteering, working with volunteers. Yeah, exactly. It's I've found so many good volunteers. In Norway, a lot of old people do volunteer, and they're an amazingly important part of the economy, much as people like to disregard retired people. But they are, like, someone tried to calculate it, and it's like millions and millions. They're so valuable. They do so much. Volunteering is really important, and it's something that can give people a lot of joy and meaning, and yeah. But yeah, age diversity is really, really important in how we relate as a society, because it's how we were used to, having in the villages, people in the village talk to everyone and all sorts of ages interact, and I think that is really healthy for people to see different viewpoints, hear different experience levels, and just, yeah. Very much an inclusivity rant. Yeah, more people in favor of intergenerational friendships. I had lots of friends of different ages in school, and it was so good. Yeah, it's really, really important to encourage those kinds of things, I think. I like that we are helping each other in the comments. It is very nice. And especially since a lot of us do not have English as our first language, that is of course also a challenge when it comes to communication, but it is the best that we have. That's the thing, isn't it? You can argue all you want on why is English one of the quote-unquote global languages of the world, and you can talk about colonialism and all of the different reasons, but on some degrees you just have to be like, yeah, but it just happens to be English, so let's just make the best of it. And we all make the best of it the best we can and communicate the best we can. And sometimes you can get help with expressions if you forget a word, and sometimes you might even be able to find someone who speaks your language who can help you if you really can't figure out how to phrase something in English. And I mean, you see it when I'm talking. Sometimes I completely forget the word for something in English, and I'll just sit there going, it's the thing with the thing in the foot and thing with the stuff. And then some. Hello, madam. Are you back? Am I talking too much for Her Majesty's preference? We are getting many good words for people who don't fit the mainstream, and I love it. Such a good variety of, oh, you're just passing by? Rude. You could at least say hi. I also think it's important that more niche communities be welcoming to people who fit the mainstream, as long as it's safe, because how are they gonna experience difference as human otherwise? Yeah, exactly. That is why we need to talk with everyone, and why so often you will see that people don't relate to people on screen if they are someone they have stereotypes against. How many examples do we have of parents who are very problematic and like hating on LGBTQ plus people and being like, oh, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, and then in good cases, if you're lucky, if a child comes out as LGBTQ, they grow to accept it and be more supportive of LGBTQ. I mean, in the best case scenario, this does not always happen, not by a long shot. I'm not rose painting anything, but sometimes you will see that over time the person will come to actually support LGBTQ rights because someone in their immediate social relations is that type of person that they used to marginalize, and they see that it's just a person, it's just a human trying to live their best lives according to their values, and then they turn around, which is why relations and friendships and relationships, inter-age, sexualities, inter-abilities, all sorts of things are so important for us to understand how different people see life. I dislike how everyone in the society that I'm in self-sort by age so much. I actually identify more with my nephew's interests than the adults in my family gatherings, and I want to sit with the kids. Why not go sit with the kids? Be at the kids' table. I was at the kids' table. We still get sorted in the kids' table because parts of spouse's family is so big that they can't fit everyone around the same table anyway, so all the kids, even though we're adults, end up on the kids' table anyway, so who cares? Go chill out with the kids, why not? Like, I increasingly see cis people with trans friends talk about how hanging out in trans-friendly spaces has made them feel more comfortable in their cisgender, and I think that's very important. Yes, absolutely. Talking about these things, I don't see how talking about these things hurts anyone. It just helps everyone put words to feelings and expressions and experiences, and learning to talk about how you feel in the body, or like how you identify. I don't see how it hurts anyone. We're just talking and learning to interact. It's beneficial for everyone. And it's also beneficial to know that, some people don't feel at home in their body, some people do. Some people don't have a preference. They're just like, yeah, it happens to be the meat and bones that ferries my brain around to do shit, which, cool. I want my brain to be able to go around and do cool stuff and make cool things, and I don't really, so long as my body functions and can get me on walks and stuff, then that is good enough for me. And yeah, I very much fit into that type of, this is the thing that moves my brain around. Cool. If I were talking in Norwegian to Kristine, we would use the Norwegian word for this different to describe ourselves. Exactly. And how many different words for that don't we have in Norwegian? Different dialects and all of the things. There's so many different nuances as well. Like, it isn't just one for one. When you translate something, there are different associations and nuances to a word that is very difficult when you're learning the language, but is apparent to people who speak it. But yeah. You can vibe well with that one? Good. Finding a word that you vibe with is good. It's definitely important for cis and trans people to be comfortable, and I'm so happy for them to, when cis people can experience gender euphoria. Yes, yes, absolutely. There's room for everyone. Just, yeah, having a good time. Why not? The kids always seek me out at family gatherings because they know that they can just play with me and talk with me. I value it a lot, yeah. Kids need safe adults that they enjoy being with, and not just like strict parents who tell them no. Like, they need people they can play with too and talk to, and it's important. And a lot of the time it's easier to talk to someone who isn't the parent, you know, isn't the primary caregiver, because that's a different relationship. Whereas if you're an auntie or a friend or a close relation but not the everyday caregiver, they might be able to have different conversations than you are able to as a parent, and that is valuable, and that is not a lack in any which direction. It's just different, and it's all important to have people that are your age, but also people who are not your age, in either direction. It doesn't matter which one, it's equally important anyway. But I see that this topic is sure making a lot of people enthusiastic, because we are talking a lot faster than I can keep track. Although once when I babysat for my cousin's daughter and my niece, my cousin's kid looked at me and said, "We're looking after ourselves." Sure we are, but I'm still the one cooking dinner. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's like the difference in expectations can be interesting, but it's all well and good. Teach them to help cooking dinner? Definitely. So long as they are included in a nice way where they see that it's all something we do together and not something they get left to do on their own, then yeah, absolutely include them in making food and let them have ownership over doing things. It's so cool. Although supervising might actually be more work, it usually is. But how else are they gonna learn? If you're not allowed to make mistakes, if you're in a family where people laugh at your mistakes, how are you expected to learn to do anything? Lovely to hang out and see you all. Have to get ready for my dentist appointment. Have a great day night, everyone. Well, thank you, Elspeth, for joining us. Maybe we'll see you again another time. Good luck with the dentist, definitely. All fingers crossed for a good time and safe time in everyone. But yeah, I have been, you know, visiting families where someone tried to do a new thing and it wasn't perfect and got ridiculed around the dinner table because the dessert looked weird or what have you. And it always makes me so sad, because that really doesn't foster people wanting to experiment and try new things. It just makes them scared, and you know, they pull into themselves and they end up just doing the things they know they're good at, because trying anything new and being bad at something in the beginning just gets them laughed at, and that is just so sad. I really wish that was something I could just make people stop doing, because we're all going to be bad at things when we try them for the first time. That's just how it is. And if we can instead be like, "Oh cool, you tried something new, excellent," that would be so much more helpful to teaching the younger generations, and probably ourselves too, who grew up having that kind of family, that it's okay to fail, because so many people don't want to try if they're not good the first time, and that just locks so many people up, never trying to do things that they want to do, and it makes me sad. Come make things. Come make things. Why would you shame someone for having cooked a thing that's terrible? Yes, exactly. That's what I was thinking. And yeah, it was a family recipe and it was very specific and, you know, tradition and blah blah blah, and it's supposed to be a certain way, but how are you gonna teach it to the next generation if you don't allow them to make mistakes? I don't get it. Plus they were tasty anyway. Even if the shape was not perfect, it was still tasty. Like, why would you laugh about that? I genuinely don't understand. Don't laugh at people learning new skills. They are doing the brave, amazing thing of learning a new skill and being bad at something to be good at it later on. Like, encourage that. Encourage that stuff. It's so important. Who wants to be normal when we can see normal people walking around the town looking much less than happy? Yeah, fair. But I mean, normal is like, I don't think it exists anyway. Like the perfectly stereotypical average person doesn't really exist. We're all weird in different ways. We're all different in various small ways, and we all need to be included and feel warm and cozy with whatever social group appeals to us. Exactly, it's so wonderful when someone else has cooked so I don't have to. Yeah, that's another thing, you know. Oh, you did the things, I don't have to. Cool, maybe I'll do it tomorrow, but for today, thank you so much. I love it. Yeah, at age 4, mix this bowl is probably as far as you can go. Depends on the child, but yeah. But good on you for letting them try a little bit. Or, I need 4 eggs, can you help me count them? Yeah, see, there's many things if we want to, but it does take more time. It takes a lot more time, you know, to include children, but it's so valuable. How else are you going to give them a sense of accomplishment and mastery of tasks that will be very important to them later on? What even counts as normal? Our markers for normal are so subjective, yeah. It's not until we start sharing that we see how much we differ, even when we don't realize. Yeah, exactly. And I think for some people it's more than others, but I think a lot of people, more people than we realize, feel different in some small or big way, even when we see them as, you know, normal or average or whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to group them as. I think you'll always be surprised when you actually start talking to them and realize that they still have ways in which they are different, ways in which they are insecure or strange, if you want to use that word. I mean, we all have our things, don't we? So I also don't want to, you know, discount a group of people just because we see them as average. That might not be how they see themselves, and they might be just as much in need of an inclusive and warm and welcoming space as anyone else. Besides, after you've eaten something, it all looks bizarre anyway. Very true. Who cares? It's all ends up in the same place anyway. We could say conventional instead of normal. I am sad for conventional vocabulary preferences sometimes. Subjective. Yeah, it's... It can be a challenge, can't it? And then you also have, again, with the people who have it as their second language and might not have as big of a vocabulary. And they're often going to draw from popular culture, aren't they? Because that is what they experience and see. But the nuance might be a little bit more lost. But yeah, we all work on getting better at communicating every day. I think that's the big takeaway in all of this every time, is that communication is important. Communication is the most important skill we can learn as humans, and with communication you can learn anything. You can talk to you can talk to people, you can learn things, you can exchange experiences, you can help people, you can get helped. Communication is just the skill that sort of leads to all of these other things, leads to all of these other skills. I helped to raise my younger siblings and used to watch kids a lot. They can be a ton of fun. Yes, they can. I also raised a younger sibling, and it can be work, it can be fun, it's rewarding, and it's also like the balance. Like, you also need to be able to be a child yourself. But yeah, they definitely can be a lot of fun. My mom is proud that her coffee cakes are not pretty, but they taste so good that they sell faster at the bake sales than the fancy cookies. Tasting good is the important part. Absolutely support that, yes. I see Lynn is also very intrigued by these coffee cakes. It's one of the reasons I like tiramisu, because coffee, like that bitter along with the sweet dessert, the older I get, the more I understand the grandparents who were like, no, when we have cake, we must have coffee because you need to balance the sweet with something bitter. And now that I am getting to the point where I'm really appreciating bitter flavors when things are sweet, I'm like, why have coffee and cake separate? Why not just put them in the same food. Like the only ice cream, like I like, what are they called? Popsicles, like things that are just water and ice and flavor, not any dairy products. They are usually fine when it's really cold, but if it's a dairy product like an ice cream, the ones I really like these days are the ones that are like coffee and chocolate, like they call like mocha or something like that. They are really nice, but usually I find them too heavy and yeah, too heavy. When it's really warm, I'm like, no, I need water. This is too this is too rich and too sweet. So that is something that has really changed over the years with my palate. I'm getting a lot more appreciative of bitter foods. And especially that combination of bitter and sweet. It's really delicious. Coffee cake is mainly a cake served with coffee, may or may not include coffee in the recipe. That's cool. Yeah, I've seen some recipes with coffee in them and I'm really curious. They sound really delicious. A lot of chocolate icing for chocolate cakes that I know about here in Norway will have a little bit of coffee in the recipe because that little bit of bitter brings out the chocolate flavor all the more, and it's really cool. I was really confused when I learned that coffee cake was a cake to have with coffee and not actually caffeinated. That is so interesting as a language thing, because here in Norway, coffee and cake they sort of go together. I mean, Norwegians drink a lot of coffee, so it's sort of an expectation that you have them together anyways. It's so interesting that you have a expression for a type of cake that's specifically for being eaten with coffee. That is cool, because I would also think that they kind of have coffee in them, because that sounds delicious. As my entire childhood and much of my adult life told I'm weird, I do not know why, but I'm always welcome in here. Yes, you are welcome here. You can always come back here for a bit of a breather and just feeling welcomed, and then brave the real world again. Matcha tiramisu is amazing for the same reason. I need to make that. That sounds delicious. That sounds absolutely delicious. Yes, popsicles in my region, coffee pairing cake is a specific recipe. Interesting. That is really interesting. Yellow cake, often with a crumbly semi-frosting on top. Coffee cake. Huh. Oh, you learn something new every day. And you people teach me so much. This is really cool. I like learning new stuff. The coffee cakes I know to be called such are dry cakes, the kind that's often baked in a circular cake pan. Interesting. If it's dry, would it be an expectation to dip it in the coffee? Because I see some people do that with biscuits, like they will dip biscuits in tea or coffee, which is not a tradition here, but I see a lot of people doing it. I need to try granita al cafe coffee slush. I definitely do. I also really want to try, but I think I have the ingredients to make it, and I really should. But in Japan, I know they have a thing for coffee jelly, so sweet jelly but with coffee flavor, and then they will have like some sort of cream on top, and it looks delicious. It looks so good. I really want to make some and try it, but I probably need to buy some cream to make a vanilla custard or something to go with it. But oh my goodness, I so want to try that. It looks... That is, I don't drink coffee so much. Well, in recent years, that's not quite true. In recent years, I've started enjoying coffee, but like in cold drinks, you know, with milk and chocolate syrup as a mocha or something like that. I don't usually like to drink it without anything, which is the normal way to consume coffee when you're visiting people in Norway. But I have learned to like coffee drinks, and I'm learning that I really like it in desserts, because again, that tinge of bitter really offsets the sweet, and I'm like, yes, this is delicious. We do have cakes with coffee in them, just described different, like mocha cake if with chocolate. That sounds delicious. Not gonna lie, I once engineered a recipe for matcha chestnut variant of Black Forest cake, also recommend. Ooh, that sounds really good. So Lynn, when are you doing that Faceless Cooking channel? Because you have so many excellent recipes that just sound so delicious. Like, I want to see that. Just for my own selfish reasons, I definitely want to see that. I am not much of a cake person, but that sounds amazing. Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed. I see a lot of agreement in the comment. Autocorrect is a pest today. That jelly sounds fantastic. Yeah, autocorrect can be a challenge. I usually turn it off on all my devices because it does me more harm than good. I glaze my coffee cake with coffee and mix a bit into the crumble. Yeah, that also sounds really delicious. It makes sense. Yeah, that does sound really good. Coffee jelly is delicious and pretty easy. Yeah, for the recipes I've seen, it doesn't look very difficult. I just have to carve out the time to do it, but maybe I should. I have most of the ingredients, so I only need something for the cream to go with it. And then we're good to go. Maybe I should put it on the shopping list. You all are inspiring me with all this delicious food talk. By the way, I found a lacy pattern for the mohair yarn to make a headband to go with the gloves. Thank you for the recommendation. Also, coffee is delicious. Excellent. Which also means that you helped me find the word for not a hat but things that warms your ears, because I could not remember the word headband. Speaking of language challenges. In the north, as a child, I was allowed to dip sugar cubes in my great-grandfather's coffee. No cake needed. I was allowed to do the same in my dad's coffee, but woe be unto you if you dropped it. If you dropped the sugar cube, you were in trouble. Especially if you were in a restaurant and you couldn't just refill the cup. Like, yeah, you needed to hold on to it, but that's delicious. Again, sugar and bitter are such a good combination. Maybe I'll make a blog. The problem is actually measuring what I use. I know, right? When you have the cooking style of just measure it with your heart and just add it until it's enough, it's very difficult to make cooking vlogs. I have tried and since deleted it because I had the same issue. Which is why if you just make a video and just make it an experience... Ooh. I mean, you've seen my videos. It's just, yeah, I did a thing with the thing and the stuff and then it became the thing. You want measurements? They went kind of then and then a little bit like so, and then stuff and the thing and the thing in the thing. You did the sugar cube too? Yeah, I think a lot of us did. It was a lot of fun. It was a very nice dessert. Thai layered desserts like coffee, coconut water, agar is the best dessert when it's hot. I believe that. I really want to make... I've seen those desserts that are like coconut milk or coconut cream, and then you have those little balls of jelly that my brain is blanking on it right now, but it's in there, tapioca pearls, and then you have fruits and mangoes, and it's cold, and it's like this delicious like soupy dessert, and it looks amazing, but I have to wait until tropical fruits are in season, so they're not super expensive here, but it looks really like something that would be fun to make and fun to eat as well, and fun things. Kristine, on the subject of language challenges, do you ever find that if you temporarily forget a word in one language, you forget it in all of them? Yes, absolutely. And then you sit there and have a temporary identity crisis as to why you can. And sometimes, and sometimes because I have been, especially since I've been using English as my professional language for over 10 years now. I mean, the first year in my bachelor's in chemistry, we had textbooks in Norwegian, and ever since then all the textbooks were in English. Sometimes the teaching was in Norwegian, but all the textbooks were in English, and in my master's everything was in English, the teaching and the guidance and everything, and same with the PhD, same when we were in London, of course, everything was in English. So it's been my working language for well over 10 years at this point. And the worst is when you are able to communicate something in English, but not in Norwegian, and you sit there going, why am I failing on my native tongue? Why is this is not supposed to happen? You feel like an idiot. But yeah, I definitely blank in both languages, and then you sit there going, arg, why? Like with headband, I mean, I know headband when you mentioned it, when you said that you were making mohair headbands, I was like, of course that is the word, but at the time my brain was completely blanking. definitely happens. The other variation is only remember it in this specific language for a whole month. Yeah. These days, if it's really frustrating, I'll pull out a dictionary or like a translator, but yeah, it's so frustrating. My challenge is memory, not so much other languages, which I don't have multilinguality. Well, yeah, memory can be an issue too. I mean, it's related to that, isn't it? Milia says, I have that too, and it's so annoying. It really is. And there are also so many things that are very topic specific. We talk about this a lot, like knitting. You could never just translate a knitting pattern from Norwegian to English without knowing that there are very niche specific words for certain things. You cannot just translate things word for word. It doesn't work because the technical aspects of the language just don't work. And you'll see the auto captions frequently struggle with niche words. That is where they struggle the most because they don't really fit into the conversation and they don't know which word goes there, which is when we talked about mohair, we had like my hair and more hair or something like that. The auto captions really don't know what to do with technical language, which is one of the big challenges of auto captions when you're talking about technical stuff, and they have no idea how to caption that. And then people who need captions, if it's only auto captions, they completely lose the whole point, the whole core of whatever you're talking about, because you're losing those technical words. But yeah, definitely a struggle. I put things into food depending on partly on the age of the ingredients. Telling my partner how to make something was very complicated. I can understand that. I do the same. I'm trying, especially in like autumn and winter and stuff, to have like a weekly soup where I throw in all the vegetables that start to get sad so that we get to use them. And that's definitely, age of ingredients is definitely a valid cooking recipe in this household too. I'm not surprised if I forget words in French. It's been a while, but in Finnish, English or Swedish, it can drive me mad. Yeah. When it's a language that you feel like you know and that you should know and that is part of your identity, it's super frustrating. Or when you start learning a language and a new word totally escapes you and all you get is that word in every other language you know. Yes. Many language frustrations in chat. I can absolutely identify with this. What's really frustrated is when you learn a craft on the internet in English and then you walk into a store and realize you have no idea how anything is called. Yes, that's very much a problem. If you'd asked me to talk about environmental chemistry or chromatography in Norwegian, I would have a big problem because I've only ever talked about it in English, and then you're like, what is this called in Norwegian, or the other way around. I mean, I learned to knit in Norwegian, and now with doing videos for you, I have to learn terms in English too, which luckily, usually we do very simple patterns, so I don't have to do the very, very complicated stuff. But it works the other way too. Like, there are some English crafts that I want to show you, and they have specific names in Norwegian, but I don't think, because it isn't a technique in English as far as I know, I don't think they have a word in English. But then we get to have fun and talk about literal translations and other things, so it's all good. But that can definitely be a challenge with niche things. It's always a big challenge to find the right word for things. I'm sure you get people going, oh, just say it in X language, and that you have to explain that you have lost the entire linguistic concept of a cat. Yes, exactly. I got used to speaking with other multilingual people that spoke the same languages, and then I moved away, and filling the gaps that I used to fill in my native tongue become impossible. That's a challenge, isn't it? At least when people speak the same languages, you can sort of jump back and forth between the ones that that is actually happening in your brain. But if you are the only one with several languages, you can't do that anymore, and it's a whole thing. Like your brain has one big box called foreign for all the other languages. So much mid-sentence code switching among multilingual friends group? Yes, very much so, and it's a lot of fun, and people look at you really weird if they don't have the same languages as you do, and it goes really fast. I love the names of sewing supplies, mostly in English only. The shame I feel going shopping for them and trying to describe them to the poor shopkeeper is real. Yeah, it can be a real struggle because there's no way of knowing what it's called in the other language without knowing it, because it doesn't make sense. Like trying to translate it literally never ever works with niche and topic specific things. It just doesn't. I also once had this issue where I'd been speaking French in France for months, and then I couldn't find any words in Swedish, and later found out I couldn't switch from Swedish to French either. I hate it when that happens. It's so frustrating, even though you know both languages. And the struggles when I can't remember a word in any of the languages I speak, and then I'm all left with is gestures and sound effects. Gestures and sound effects can be very efficient though. I used to work I was a landscape gardener at the university where I did my bachelor's, and we were a very multilingual group. We had Polish people who, one of them had been a French teacher, none of them spoke English. I didn't speak French other than, a few years in secondary school, so very, very limited French. And they would teach me a few phrases in Polish. I would try very haltingly to converse with one of them in French. None of them spoke Norwegian. There were a lot of gestures, and still we had a lot of fun. And then we had other people who spoke French and Norwegian, but not English, so she could converse with the French teacher, and then they could converse back to us. And then we had a couple of Czech people in the mix. It was fantastic. It was such a multicultural group. It was such an educational, again, like you just learn so much from different cultures, different viewpoints. It was a lot of fun. And they were, we also had Spanish and English. But yeah, it was such a lovely, lovely group of people. We had a lot of fun. I actually look up the names of things before going, but they still end up being wrong. That happens sometimes. Oh, that reminds me, some costume people made a fun video about sewing notion names in different names a while back. I'll try to find it and put it in this Discord. Do it! That sounds great. That sounds a lot of fun, especially if you, in addition, translate them literally into what it would be called if you translate it literally to English, because I find that a lot of fun, like when it's not the correct word, but it's what the word would be, which I think is hilarious. I have a friend who I have an overlap for language families, and we will often code switch in non-shared languages. Luckily, we know each other well enough that we mostly understand anyway. Good job. That can be so challenging, but also so fun. I think it's so hard to find out online, as maybe you will get a technical term or an older term or poorly translated term. Yes. It is a big challenge, especially with historical crafts that aren't very popular anymore. They probably had a language, but it's been lost, so what do you do? I went to an international school, and that was the experience too. Going to a monolingual university after that was a big culture shock. I would imagine so. Sometimes I brought a thimble into a sewing shop here in Mexico and had to demonstrate what it was for the young assistant had no idea what it was. Oh no. So many different things. Maybe they had other things, like the sashiko thimbles are very different from the thimbles that you put at the end of your finger, and they work really, really well for sashiko, and they don't look super similar, but so cool. Anyway, in all the talk about inclusion and languages and everything, we have been going for 3 hours rather than the 2 we normally do, so I do think we are going to be wrapping up here. I need to get to bed soon because it is evening for me. It is 8 p.m. currently, but this was such a lovely talk. It was a nice combination of resting and parallel playing and just knitting alongside one another and talking and engaging and having fun together, and I had a really, really good time. And yeah, we'll try to do another one this Sunday, which will be 9 a.m. for me, which is yeah, you see in the Discord when it is in relation to your own time zones. But anyway, this was very, very nice, and have a good rest of your day, rest of your week. I hope you have a really great time, and thank you for joining me, and see you again soon, I hope. Bye.